If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 251, Chapter number 248. The Healer, Chansey. POV change. Hey, Ash, can I ask you something? Yellow curiously said as they walked through the meadows. What is it? How come you have Lucario, Haunter, and Pikachu out even though it is against the rules? Well, I talked to the staff and got permission to have Lucario and Pikachu out with the promise that he doesn't hurt any of the Pokémon in the Safari Zone. As for Haunter, she hid in my shadow. But isn't it unfair to use Lucario's and Haunter to capture Pokémon? Yellow asked innocently. Austin sighed at Yellow's childlike outlook on life. Well, there are a lot of cameras in this place. Since we haven't been kicked out, then we haven't broken any rules. Austin said, but opted to not tell Yellow that ghost-type Pokémon can't be seen on camera, and when a camera pans over them, it usually results in a black smug being seen. Oh, boy, was Haunter not happy when they tried to take a group photo in Rhoda. We are close, Lucario informed the duo as he stopped. Austin and Yellow peered out of the bushes as they saw Chansey weeping while sitting next to a tree. She is feeling sad, Yellow whispered. I am going to talk to her, Austin said as he walked out of the buses. Austin's presence caused Chansey to look up. Austin took out a Pokémon bait as he asked, "Can I talk to you?" Chansey. The Chansey looked nervous for a moment, then grabbed another piece of Pokémon bait from Austin's hand and chewed. Look. Austin stared at Chansey's feet. Don't worry, I won't catch you if you don't want me to, but I want to catch a Chansey. Chansey. She didn't look afraid. Can I sit down? Chansey nodded as she ate another Pokémon bait. Austin sat down and said, a few weeks ago, I lost a dear friend of mine, but if we could have gotten the treatment, maybe she would have survived. Chansey, I know this is your home, but would you like to join me? I know it is a very unreasonable request from me, but I need someone like you. Someone who can assure me that I and my family and could get the treatment that may save our life. Would you be that someone? Austin asked as he placed a Pokeball in between himself and Chansey. Chansey. Chansey burst out into tears before hugging Austin. Whoa! Austin chuckled as he was lifted by Chansey while being hugged. Chansey waddled side to side in happiness before placing Austin down. Chansey, Chan. Chansey tried to put on its trademark smile but couldn't as she hurriedly touched the Pokeball from the bushes. A few vines shot out attacking Chansey. Everyone turned to the duo of Tangela that were furiously looking around. Tangela, Tang. Lucario. They are saying, how dare you perverted Chansey do that to my son. Lucario's words caused everyone to look at Chansey, who got up. Chansey. Lucario, what did Chansey say? Austin asked. Am I your translator? Lucario said with annoyance visible on his face. Lucario. Fine, you don't have to raise your voice. The healer is apologizing, saying that she only wanted to heal the son. The two Tangela didn't even consider Chansey's words as they shot power whips at Chansey. Haunter, Shadow Claw. The two Tangela vines were sliced by crescents of ghostly energy. Austin stepped in between Chansey and the Tangelas. Mr. and Miss Tangela, I apologize for what Chansey had done. I am sure she didn't mean to do any harm, Austin said with a bow, shocking Chansey. Tangela, Ella. Austin's apology did little to appease the mother and father. Austin took out a healing potion and sprayed it on Chansey's wounds from the power whips. Under the eyes of everyone, Chansey's wounds healed. Austin then threw the healing potion towards the two Tangela. Use it to heal your son. Austin shouted out, causing the male Tangela to step up, but the female stopped him. Tangela. The female took the healing potion as she said something to her husband that caused the male to follow him. Austin turned to Lucario, whose nostrils flared up. She said that their son is more important than teaching us a lesson, Lucario said while rolling his eyes, but his attitude immediately turned into one of joy when Austin threw a chocolate bar at him. Austin turned towards Chansey. So want to join my team? Chansey didn't answer as she focused on a little bruise Austin had on his wrist when he tried to capture the leader, Tauros. Austin smiled as he saw Chansey healing him, but his smile quickly went away when he saw the expression on Chansey's face. It looked like a cross between an absolute perversive expression mixed in with ecstasy and a grin of pure evil. Austin wouldn't lie when he said that this moment scared him. Chansey saw the fear in Austin's eyes as tears welled up before she quickly waddled away. Austin was too shocked to say anything as he turned to Yellow. Yellow, what were Chansey's emotions when she tried to heal me? I sensed that she was sad yet happy. Ash. Yet. I think Chansey can't control her expressions, hence why she scared off that baby Tangela when she was only trying to help. Yet, I think so too. Let's find our pink friend. Sitting by a lake, Chansey looked at her reflection. Why couldn't I be like everyone else? Why can't I just be normal? Thoughts filled Chansey's head as she encountered the first human who she wanted as a trainer. He didn't want me as a prize to be shown off, rather he wanted her to be a part of a family. Family, hey. Do I even deserve such a thing? At the end of the day, I am just a freak. With that thought, Chansey closed her eyes. You know, for a Chansey, you sure do run fast. A voice called out, causing Chansey to turn to the side where she saw Austin aiming a rock at the water. Austin flung the stone forward as it skipped a few meters away on the surface. Chan. Well, the offer is still valid. Want to join my team? Chansey. Chansey turned and looked at her reflection. You know, everyone has some kind of problem that they are ashamed of. Pikachu has a ketchup problem. Pika. Pikachu threw the rock towards the river, trying to make it skip, but couldn't as he heard his name. I have a problem with heights. Everyone has a problem in their life, but that doesn't mean you can't overcome it. How about this? Chansey, if you join my team, I promise you that I will help you overcome your problem. Austin's words had caused Chansey to tear up. Chansey stood up and hugged Austin, which he reciprocated. After a long hug, Chansey let Austin go as she stood meters away from him. Chansey. Austin smiled at the pink Pokémon before chugging the safari ball forward. Chansey disappeared into the Pokeball, which began to rock back and forth. With the sound being echoing through the area, Chansey joined Austin's team as the healer who can't control her expressions. Make paragraph. It is a little known fact that, like Porygon and Mewtwo, Golem is an artificial Pokémon. The weak, especially the weak and unusual, have always needed protection from the strong, and for a religious community on Mt. Coronet which prayed to a Probopass god, the danger was all too real. Their god, who they had absolute faith in, had failed to protect them, but they would not renounce him even at the cost of their lives. If only they could command stronger Pokémon. They defended themselves with what was available in the area, but their imaginations were gripped by the story of the Regis, 3 ancient and powerful machines created by another priesthood, in another time artificial Pokémon which themselves were eventually worshipped as gods. Their secret was lost, but perhaps if something similar could be done with Graveler, they could find a way to fight back. And something could be done. Through the usage of large machines traditionally used for trading Pokémon and a great deal of experimentation, a method was found to turn Graveler's uneven rocks into an immensely durable series of interlocking, hexagonal stones, and its body shape became one that could fit into a cannon. 2 arms were lost, but the other 2 gained in strength. The new Pokémon was named Golem, after the phrase legendary golems, an old term for the Regis. The community which invented the Golem wiped themselves out in a mass suicide after a desperate last stand. Their secrets were spread far and wide throughout the occupying empire, and from there through espionage and captured machines throughout the Pokémon world. In these times, the ability to evolve Graveler into Golem is a standard feature for trading machines, and its roots have been all but forgotten. Chapter number 249, The Dratini Duo. Austin and the others were heading back when they saw an open field where a large, hippo-like Pokémon with bluish-gray skin and a dark gray back and muzzle with several small and large holes in them. It had red eyes, a large rounded snout, and a massive mouth that is over 7 feet, 2 meters, wide when open. Hippowdon was wrestling against a crocodilian Pokémon that had a thick maroon-colored body, black back, and white stomach. It had 5 triangular spikes on its back, 4 around the middle of its back and 1 large one at the beginning of its tail. Hippowdon. Crocodile. Both Pokémon wrestled each other for dominance while Austin and the others could see one of the staff members alongside a scientist observing them. Looks like we have to go through another way, Yellow whispered with everyone agreeing as they began to walk another way. The sun was shining brightly as Austin and the others strolled alongside the small lake with Pikachu and Choo-Choo dipping their tiny paws in the sparkling water that was rippling in the light. The grass was a lush green and the trees were starting to turn golden, the leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. There was a small spot on it that seemed to harbor a strange glow to it. It was out of the ordinary. What do you suppose that is? Yellow asked as she went to get a closer look. The small ripples in the lake continued for a few more seconds until they suddenly stopped. The group gave an inquisitive glance at the lake for a few more moments. They thought nothing was going to happen until a figure popped its head out of the water. It was light blue with a white underbelly. It looked like a long snake with fin-like ears and a circular snout. It was a Dratini, and it was looking straight at the group. Is that what I think it is? Austin gasped, not expecting to accidentally meet Dratini as Yellow pulled out her Pokédex. Dratini, the dragon Pokémon. This Pokémon is full of life energy. It continually sheds its skin to gradually grow larger, said the Pokédex. As the group took a closer look at the dragon Pokémon, it didn't look timid. If anything, if Pokémon could be considered bad, that is exactly how they would classify this Dratini, judging by its expression. This little one looks a little rough compared to the ones I've seen, Lucario said. I think I might be able to lure it closer with some bait, Yellow stated as she pulled some out that was given to her by the Safari Zone staff. She then held it out in her hand and asked, "Would you like some food, Dratini?" The Dratini gave a quick sniff before it began to swim closer to the shoreline, still not letting up on its unfriendly disposition. To the group's great surprise, another Dratini poked its head out of the water, as well. Unlike the one that was swimming towards Yellow, this Dratini had a very nervous and scared look about it. "Would you like some bait, too?" Austin curiously asked the newcomer Dratini while he wondered if a Dragonair lived in the Safari Zone like in the anime. If that was the case, then he would try to catch it. Upon hearing Austin's voice, the other Dratini immediately looked alarmed and swam back several feet with scared expressions on their face. The Dratini that came out first saw what took place and glared at the other Dratini before continuing to swim to Austin. Once it came out of the water, it slid a little closer to Austin and stared at the food in his hand for a little bit. "Go on. Have some," Austin encouraged invitingly despite Dratini's angry look. Dratini stared at the bait for a moment before slapping Austin's hand quite hard with its long tail. "Ouch!" Ash yelped as he threw the food a short distance away. The Dratini chased the food over and began to munch greedily on it and gave an arrogant smirk at Austin, who was massaging his stinging hand. "Pika!" Pikachu's cheeks sparked in anger. "Hey, that's mean," Yellow said. "That was uncalled for." The Dratini gave an uncaring look at Yellow before continuing its meal. The group then cast a look at the Dratini that was still in the water. It barely had its head poked out of the water and was watching the group with a fearful expression. It was acting how the group would expect with a Dratini. They are said to be very cautious of humans. The group thought they were having incredible luck by seeing two wild ones on the same day. They figured that this particular lake must have a few living underwaters. "Maybe I can get this one to come out of the water, as well," Austin figured as he took some more bait out of his backpack to coax it to him. He then gave it a warm smile. "Come get some food, Dratini." The timid Dratini poked its head out of the water a little higher and cast a wary glance at the group. Then, ever so slowly, it began to make its way to Austin. "That's it. Come on," Austin said gently as it came a little closer. "It's so cute," Yellow commented as she watched it come forward. The Dratini slid onto shore and slowly made its way to Austin's hand. It sniffed the food and gave a questioning look at Austin as if to ask if it was okay to take. "Go on. I promise I won't hurt you," Austin smiled. "Pika Pika," Pikachu encouraged. Dratini then leaned over to begin to eat the food, but it was suddenly knocked out of the way by the other Dratini. It was knocked several feet away before getting up with watery eyes. It almost looked ready to cry. "Hey! What did you do that for?" Yellow asked the aggressive Dratini. The Dratini said nothing before slapping Austin's hand once more and snatching the food away. "Pika Pika Pikachu!" The yellow rodent yelled at the Dratini. The Dratini gave an angry look at Pikachu before tackling it to the ground. Pikachu got up and was preparing to thunderbolt it, but Lucario stopped him by head-chopping it. "Did you forget, rat? Battles aren't allowed in this place or you could get everyone in a lot of trouble." Lucario warned, but he smirked with satisfaction when he saw Pikachu realize what he had been called by Lucario. "Pika, Pie." Pikachu glared at Lucario for calling him a rat. Yellow frowned when she saw Dratini smirking in triumph before eating the food it had just snatched from Austin's hands. "That just stinks. It's not even ashamed of itself. It's the complete opposite of how I would expect a Dratini to act. I thought they were supposed to be gentle Pokémon," Yellow said. Austin glared at the mean-spirited Dratini before going over to the other Dratini. Upon seeing Austin coming towards it, its eyes grew wide, and it darted behind a rock. The rogue Dratini got a dark glint in its eye and chased the timid Dratini behind the rock and stood over it in a dominating fashion. The other Dratini cowered in fear as it was loomed over by the other one. To everyone's surprise, a safari ball flew from seemingly nowhere and struck the rogue Dratini right in the center. The Pokémon turned in surprise for just a split second before it was sucked inside the safari ball. It then began shaking a few times before it dinged to show it had been caught. The group turned to see the other person who had just caught the rogue Dratini and discovered it was none other than Paul. Paul said nothing in reply as he walked up to the safari ball containing the rogue Dratini and picked it up, but not before giving a scornful look at the cowering Dratini that was still on the ground. Paul then pulled out his Pokédex and ran it over the safari ball to check Dratini's stats. He appeared to be deep in thought as he looked over the safari ball. Everyone continued to watch with a frown as Paul scanned the safari ball with an unreadable expression. After about 10 seconds, he finally put it away and nodded his head. Okay. This one seems to have good stats, he decided. Paul paused when saw Lucario by Austin's side. Paul gave a rough smile before turning around. Well, looks like your luck turned around. But maybe not that much. Why don't you catch that pathetic Pokémon? I got what I came for, so I'm out of here, he muttered as he walked off. Pikachu, Pikachu said angrily, but Austin remained unfazed. After all the shit that had happened to him, it would a miracle for him to be emotional over some taunt. Leave it, he isn't worth it, Austin said before turning back to the remaining Dratini. The dragon Pokémon still had a fearful look on its face as it was trembling before Austin. Its large black eyes show such shyness yet a strange gentleness, also. Austin believed that this Dratini didn't have a single mean bone in its body. He knelt to be more eye level with the Dratini and smiled at it. Don't listen to what Paul said, Dratini. You aren't pathetic at all. There is no shame in refusing to attack something for no reason. You are the better Dratini. Remember that. Dratini made a soft cooing noise as it looked up at Austin curiously. Hey, Yellow. Do you have any extra bait? That other Dratini took all of mine, Austin said to her. Of course, Yellow smiled as she reached into her backpack and brought it over to Austin. Thank you, Austin replied as he took the bait. He then held it out in front of the Dratini and gave it an inviting smile. Go on. Help yourself. The Dratini gave an extremely wary glance at the bait. It looked as if it were trying to decide if it was safe to do so this time. Austin couldn't exactly blame since it was either stolen from or attacked the previous times. I promise I won't hurt you. Nothing bad will happen this time, Austin reassured it. Make paragraph. Ponyta are a Pokémon once found in open plains and wild grasslands, but which declined in the wild, at least in Kanto, as those lands were vanquished in the march of civilization. They were eventually, after generations of decline, hunted to extinction as a means of denying nomadic raiders their mounts. They are, however, commonly domesticated Pokémon, much like Growlithe, Miltank, or Pikachu, and a feral population of Ponyta survives in the strange habitat of the Pokémon Mansion. Traditionally herbivorous, it was once thought that they survived on various forms of plant life growing on the walls and windows, but this is insufficient to support the population within the mansion. Currently, they are believed to be a carnivorous breed that subsists on Rattata, which they trample to death with their diamond hooves and cooks with their flames. Furthermore, these Ponyta, as their dispersal throughout the mansion demonstrates, are capable of charging through doors and climbing stairs, and they do not appear to possess the instinct of fear. Many have opined that it is lucky for all of us that the scientists of the Pokémon Mansion disappeared chasing Mew. Had they stuck with Ponyta, the world would by now be faced with cavalry in Team Rocket's hands that could run through any barricade and climb any fort. If the experimentation had been allowed to continue, the world would now be faced with a breed far more terrifying than even the barbarian Ponyta of old. Chapter number 250 Traitor. Dratini took a deep breath before slowly crawling a little closer to Austin's outstretched hand. It looked down at the bait. It did smell good and probably tasted good, too. It then slowly stuck its head out before taking a tiny bite. It chewed the morsel before swallowing and got a happy expression on its face. It then gave a cheerful cry before finishing it off. There you go, Austin said as he went to rub its head. Upon seeing what Austin was about to do, the Dratini once again got a fearful expression and scooted away several feet. It still didn't seem to fully trust Austin yet. You seem to be a very cautious Pokémon, Austin told it with a smile. The Dratini looked down at the ground. It couldn't help it. It was always shy like that. The other Dratini was one of the only other Dratini in the lake with it, and it had always been a bully. It was then Yellow decided to speak to it as she knelt like Austin before her. There is certainly no shame in being a little shy, but if you let it control you, you will be missing out on so many opportunities. It was then Yellow realized what she said and gave a quick look at Austin. She was giving out advice about being shy about things, and she could never seem to muster up the courage to tell Austin how she feels about him. Maybe she should start listening to her advice, but now wasn't the time. She just had to wait for the right moment. Oh, why didn't she do it when they had their date in Rhoda? Austin taking everyone out for dinner in Rhoda was a date in Yellow's mind. That's right, Austin agreed, being the only one who didn't seem to notice Yellow's sudden embarrassed expression. I believe that you are a lot tougher than you give yourself credit for. I bet if it came to protecting something, or someone who you care about, you would do anything. Yellow said as Austin continued it with a quote that stuck with him for years. When people are protecting something truly precious to them, they truly can become, as strong as they need to be. Austin turned to Lucario, who stood there in shock before he nudged Yellow forward. Ash, what should I do? Yellow whispered to Austin. So. Sigh. Austin whispered something in Yellow's ear. Just know I will never force you, but I believe I can help you if you give me the chance, Yellow repeated as she extended her hand in a gesture of friendship to the Dratini. Will you let me? Yellow glanced at Austin, who took out a leather book from his backpack. The Dratini once more looked at Yellow's hand as it thought hard about the decision. This human seemed sincere enough with what she was saying. The other humans she was with didn't seem like bad people, either. The look in her eyes was enough to tell it that much, but if it went on a journey with her, did that mean it would have to battle? Sensing Dratini's surface-level thought, Yellow spoke up once more. Don't worry. I will never make you battle if you don't want to. I just want to show you the whole world. There is more to it than that small pond you've lived in so far. The Dratini was still contemplating Yellow's offer. She did have a point. All of its life, it had lived in isolation with no contact with any humans. It was mainly because humans were hardly ever in this area, but it couldn't solely place the blame on that. It was just a scared Pokémon by nature, but was it willing to change? It remembered how the other Dratini had walked all over it, and it did absolutely nothing to fight back. Maybe it should give this human a chance to help it overcome its weakness. At long last, Dratini nodded its head and crawled over to Yellow before nuzzling its head on her arm. Ah, that's so adorable, Yellow commented with a smile. Yellow took out a safari ball. Thank you, Dratini. I suppose I'll officially ask you now. Will you come with my friends and me on our journey? The Dratini responded to Yellow's question by pressing its nose on the safari ball button and allowing itself inside. The ball made a dinging noise and Dratini had officially become Yellow's Pokémon. Yellow turned to face Austin, but what she saw caused her face turn to brighten up like a tomato. There standing before Yellow was Austin, who was undressing. Kai-a-a-a-a-a. Pokémon League Plateau, Champion's Office. Lance Water leaned back as he overlooked files that concerned Team Rocket, a frown on his face while the TV was on showing the news. The champion had a bad feeling about all of this, a pile of paperwork left unattended on his desk. Even with all of that, what caught Lance's attention was the report of Ash Ketchum, the son of Red, disappearing like a ghost after the SS. An incident just like his father. Ash Ketchum's reappearance in Fuchsia City raised some attention from him. Why Fuchsia City? What was his goal there? Was he going back to the gym challenge? What was he doing in the month between the S.S.An incident and his reappearance? Lance had a lot of questions but no answers, and with Brock and Misty having no contact with Ash, his only way to get some answers was gone. Hearing his transceiver going off, Lance answered it to show Blue Oak on it. Blue, it's been a while, how goes the Viridian Gym? He asked the young man with some respect in his eyes. Not that much, I am trying to find some leads on Team Rocket but all of them keep coming short. As if someone knew that I was coming. Blue's words caused Lance to narrow his eyes. Who do you think it is? Lance Waters said as he understood Blue Oak's words. Someone from the league was a traitor working for Team Rocket. Make paragraph. It is commonly believed that wherever a Rapidash runs, the land itself will soon burst into flame. The grasses of the Eurasian steppe used to burst into flames all along the border with civilization whenever a Khan's Ponyta evolved, which the various tribes would use as a signal to launch a great raid or even an invasion. In more forested regions, they caused wildfires in civilized areas. Well, they aren't only banned from most civilized areas because of their association with either the barbarian hordes or the old aristocracy. Far too many have starved before they were when harvests were burnt because rogue Rapidash ran across farmland. It is lucky for all of us that Rapidash is a proud beast, tamed only by the most skillful horsemen. Those they judge unworthy burn to a crisp when the hapless would-be rider attempts to mount them. It is luckier still that Rapidash can be easily stopped by earthquakes or hydro pumps, provided there is time to set up a defense before they run past. Few Pokémon can attack at sufficient speed to hit an escaping Rapidash. In Pokémon eschatology, it is said that war, famine, death, and plague all ride Rapidash. Of these four, only plague seems inapt. Rapidash learns no poison-type attacks more powerful than poison jab, and many theologians have opined that it'd make more sense to make it ride a mook. Some have stated that Death should ride a ghost type, and some say he does, not a ghost Pokémon, but a black and ghostly wraith of a Rapidash. As for War and Famine, no mount could be more suitable. Chapter number 251 An Underwater Tree. POV change. Pikachu rubbed his eyes in frustration at the actions of his trainer. Flexing his non-existent muscles, Pikachu waved the giant leaf he found to cool off Yellow, who had passed out after seeing his trainer undress. A bright blush covered her unconscious face. Human love is so complicated. Pikachu thought as he glanced at the lake that his trainer and Lucario were standing beside. Austin was dipping his toes into the cold water and contemplating his decision to go any further. My human is so weird. Pikachu thought as he continued. The travel to Rhoda, the Time Flower, the legendary Titans, Lucario, Dratini, etc. How did my human know all of these things? Hey! Austin called out as Haunter picked him up and threw him into the water. Kakeek! Pikachu sighed in relief since no water had splashed on his fur. But Pikachu might have spoken too soon, as Lucario did a cannonball, splashing water everywhere and drenching poor Pikachu, who was contemplating if he should shoot a thunderbolt on the lake or not. Once Austin had gotten a little further from the shallower part of the lake, he placed the snorkel on his mouth. The snorkel he had purchased was unlike the snorkels of Earth. The snorkel of this world could diffuse oxygen from the water itself, so he didn't need any giant equipment to dive into the waters. Austin closed his eyes as he submerged himself in the water. Damn it! Austin couldn't help but curse as soon as he dived in. A chill penetrated all of his body. Taking a cold shower with ice water in plain winter while being naked and then rubbing ice on your skin would probably feel like this. In time, Austin found himself getting used to the cold waters. The setting sun casts a glare of orange onto the water, creating an ambience that reminded Austin of Hogwarts Lake as he, along with Lucario and Haunter, dove deeper into the murky depths of the lake. The occasional Magikarp would flitter past them, flashing bright orange in the light of the Sunday. Austin floated above a thick forest of seaweed as he continued to swim further. The silence pressed hard upon his eardrums as he soared over a black abyss where the lake bed seemed to suddenly drop drastically deeper. Under Lucario's guidance, the trio went deeper. It felt as if the dark was swallowing him whole. It was harder and harder to see the forest of seaweed in front of him. Haunter raised her claws as the ghostly flames of Will-O-Wisp gave everyone a much-needed light source. Austin could only see a couple of feet around him. New scenery slinked out of the shadows, twisted rock formations, towering black seaweed, an overgrown cave stained in algae. A couple of times, he could have sworn he saw a dark figure prowl in the corner of his eye, but it always seemed to disappear into the darkness. It was probably just a trick of the mind, right? Lucario pointed at a cave as Haunter and Austin nodded. Water bubbles appeared on the surface. The silent surface started to boil suddenly, and then a black shadow arose on top of it. Pwaha! Austin took in a deep breath as soon as he got out to the surface. He would have drunk in some water if it wasn't for the snorkel. Cough, cough. Austin took in fresh air deep in his lungs and exhaled it. Tack tack task. It was the sound Austin made with his teeth hitting each other. I am, almost f-ked up. Austin couldn't speak properly and stuttered as Lucario and Haunter emerged from the water in the underwater cave. The trio ran out of the water and lay down on the ground without even checking their surroundings. Haunter raised her claw that lit up with Will-O-Wisp, providing a comforting heat for both Austin and Lucario. So is it here? Austin asked while stuttering. Lucario answered with a nod as the duo rested there for a few minutes, enjoying the warmth of the flames. After a few minutes, Lucario began to lead them through the cave. Step. Step. The silent cave started to get filled with the echoes of Austin's steps. Just what is this moss? Austin thought as he was immediately struck by the glowing patches of luminous moss that lined the walls and ceiling. The cave was dark and shadowy, but the glowing moss cast a soft, greenish-blue light throughout the space, creating a surreal and almost otherworldly atmosphere. Austin moved slowly through the cave, taking in the ethereal beauty of my surroundings. The glowing patches of moss seemed to dance and shimmer in the water, creating a mesmerizing and hypnotic effect. The cave itself is full of twists and turns, with stalactites and stalagmites jutting out from the ceiling and floor. These rocky formations are partially illuminated by the glowing moss, adding to the dramatic and otherworldly landscape. Austin couldn't help but smile at the surreal beauty that had formed all around him. The passage that only 2 people could pass through started to get wider, and when the path reached an open space that could hold 100 people appeared. The space was also filled with moss, and when the faint light gathered together they boasted a considerable brightness. The moss, the trio saw at the beginning, shone brightly with a green light and filled the entire cave. What they saw after that was a huge tree with countless branches that grew and extended in a complicated manner, filling the ceiling and the walls along the moss. The peculiarity of the leaves was that they were cyan instead of green. The tree boasted great thickness that made you wonder if it were 1,000 years old. Lastly, the roots that supported the tree covered the entire floor. An underwater tree. Austin thought in shock while wondering how this tree grew without any sunlight. The azure leaves of the underwater tree shook as a long, serpentine reptilian Pokémon with sky blue scales and a white underside slithered down. It had a rounded snout, oval purple eyes, and a small, white horn on its forehead. On each side of its head is a small, stylized wing, which is white and curves into a swirl at the base. 3 blue, crystal orbs adorn its body, 1 on its neck and 2 on its tail. The trio couldn't help but stare at the majesty beauty of pseudo-legendary Pokémon, Dragonair. Make paragraph. It is a commonly held belief that Slowpoke has reflexes so dull that one could see off their tails, a prized delicacy, before they even notice. This is an exaggeration. Such a Pokémon would surely be extinct in the wild, if even more beloved by trick room trainers than they already are. While real Slowpokes are quite numerous in the Seafoam Islands, the Slowpoke Well of Azalea Town, and even occasionally in Sinnoh in the area south and east of Eterna Forest. Furthermore, despite the name, they are not the slowest of Pokémon. That title goes to Munchlax and Shuckle. This is not, however, to say that Slowpoke is quick by any means. They are a Pokémon that take 5 seconds to feel pain, a Pokémon whose sluggish movements have cost them many a battle, for had they decent speed, their tough defenses would make them a formidable foe. But this lack of speed is not solely a weakness. It has developed to allow them to evolve, for what Pokémon would willingly allow a Shellder to clamp onto its head or tail long enough for evolution to take place? By delaying the pain until after it is too late to shake the Pokémon off, Slowpoke manages to endure a painful evolution process and become the powerful, if not much faster, Slowbro. Trainers have often remarked, and nurses have often reprimanded them, on the courage of their Slowpoke in battle. In reality, of course, they will battle beyond their limits because they are too slow to realize they have been knocked out, and can often be seriously injured. Slowpoke trainers should be advised to pay close attention to their Pokémon's health because the Slowpoke themselves are too slow to notice. Chapter number 252, A Knight vs a Dragon. Gazing upon the dragon type, Austin knew that the trip to Fuchsia City was worth it. Even though he had delayed his plans for Team Rocket, the pseudo-legendary that slithered down the tree justified was worth it. If he could tame Dragonair, then this trip would be fully worth it, but unlike other Pokémon, most Dragon-type Pokémon desire a trainer who can recognize and raise their potential. If a trainer can't do something like that, then the dragon would either kill the trainer or leave, depending on the species of Dragon types. While reading about this aspect of Dragon types, Austin would be a liar if he was saying that he wasn't scared, but he needed the power of Dragon types if he was going to destroy Team Rocket. Lucario, Aura Talk, Austin whispered as Lucario nodded while channeling his aura. What is it, Master Austin? Lucario, I want you to tell me what emotion Dragonair feels when I say something. Why? You do this for me and I'll get you a whole box of chocolate bars. How does this generation say it? You got it. Lucario stated as Austin stepped forward. Dragonair meanwhile gazed upon the intruders. If it wasn't for Lucario's presence making Dragonair wary, then she would have long since attacked Austin for intruding on her territory and attempting to capture her like the rest of the humans who she had encountered before. Dragonair! The pseudo-legendary cried out aggressively as she extended her body upward, making herself larger and more intimidating while releasing an extremely potent killing intent. Austin could feel his heart pounding in his throat. Apart from that, all he felt was blinding fear. All he could think was run. 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 I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Austin's face was the perfect artistic depiction of calm, but Lucario could feel fear and anxiety from his aura. Don't worry, I am here if anything happens, Lucario reassured Austin, who clenched his hands. You are quite the beautiful dragon. Austin complimented with a smile. Indifference. Lucario conveyed Dragonair's emotions. Seeing your beautiful gem, I can say with certainty that you are quite the old dragon. Austin's words seemed to have made Dragonair even angrier. All dragon-type Pokémon carried on the pride and prestige associated with their species. To a dragon-type, power was everything, hence why evolution was considered a form of honor, but it could also be a source of shame. The evolution of Pokémon is done in two ways. One is through rigorous training and battles, and the other one is through age. Evolution through aging is considered a form of shame to dragon-type Pokémon, and unfortunately, Dragonair, who had been raised in captivity all her life and never participated in battles, had evolved through aging. Dragonair never saw it as a problem until her so-called mate showed up. The humans of the Safari Zone had brought in a Dragonite to breed with her, but he refused to even see her after their initial meeting, calling her an embarrassment to their species. The humans had given them some food which caused them to mate forcefully, but the rampage that Dragonite had done after had left Dragonair scarred. His fury had left a seed of hatred in her heart for herself. And now Austin seemed to have accidentally poked those wounds. She's angry, Lucario said, causing Austin to sardonically reply, really, I couldn't tell. Dragonair opened its mouth and a purple-black ball appears in front of it. It then shoots a black beam with purple sparks of energy surrounding it at Austin. Austin's shadow moved as Haunter appeared between her human and the pseudo-legendary. Haunter's crimson eyes glowed before she fired a dark crimson beam, outlined in black from its eyes, at the dragon's pulse. Haunter's nightshade cancelled out the dragon pulse. Austin turned to Lucario and said, "Come on, let's battle." "No, I am perfectly contemptuous not participating in the barbaric sport of battling." Lucario. "Fine, no need to shout," Lucario said as he jumped in between Dragonair and Austin. Meanwhile, Haunter bitch slapped Austin before phasing into the ground. "I deserved that," Austin thought as he rubbed his cheek. Dragonair's glare increased as she fired off a flamethrower at Lucario, whose body flickered before disappearing. Boom! Lucario landed an uppercut right on Dragonair's jaws. Twisting on the heel of his feet, Lucario placed his palm on Dragonair's body. One of Lucario's paws turned light blue and it struck Dragonair with it, releasing a burst of blue energy from it on contact. Dragonair was launched into the air with her momentum only stopping as she crashed into the tree. Lucario disappeared again and reappeared in front of Dragonair as he grasped the horn on Dragonair's head, which was bigger than most other Dragonairs due to the age of the Pokémon. Slam! Crash! Austin and Haunter cringed as Lucario slammed Dragonair headfirst into the stalagmites covering the cave floor. Austin and Haunter both held their fist to their respective mouths while they suckled in the air. Lucario's beatdown was brutal yet fascinating to watch. Lucario stopped when Dragonair was finally knocked out. Turning around, saw Austin staring at him absent-mindedly while Haunter was writing something on a stalagmite. "What? That was just straight-up bullying. You were the one who asked me to fight, so you are the bully." "What? How? Weren't you listening? I just said why." "That doesn't make any sense," says the guy who makes money by having his family fight to the death. "Now you are just making up stuff," Austin replied as Haunter revealed the stalagmite with a carved-out 9.5 on it. "What's the ghost insinuating? She is rating your bullying on poor Dragonair. You do realize that the poor Dragonair launched an attack at you?" "I have been meaning to ask. Why did she do that? The better question is, why in the distortion realm did you have to mention her age? Why? Are female Dragonairs sensitive about their age or something?" Austin's answer caused Lucario and Haunter to facepalm. "You don't know much about dragon types, do you?" Austin, while a little embarrassed, nodded. "Well, let me tell you something about dragon types. Oh, make paragraph. If a Slowbro places a water stone on its tail, the Shellder clamped onto it will evolve. The Slowbro altered by this evolution move awkwardly, unable to drag their heavy tails behind them for balance because cloisters are too round and bumpy to balance much of anything. In battle, these cloister-bitten tails can be used as a thick club to whack enemies with, or thrown as boomerangs. However, the Slowbro must be careful, for if the cloister does not return properly, the Slowbro will devolve back into Slowpoke. This is one of the few ways in which a Pokémon can devolve. It is said that the legendary Mew was capable of returning Pokémon to earlier states, and that experimentation by Team Rocket, often on Slowbro themselves, yielded promising results in the field of Eevee study before the laboratories were shut down. Apart from these strange anomalies, it is only witnessed when a Slowbro misses its cloister with its tail, shrinks in size, and falls back to all 4 feet. They mourn with renewed vigor and, distrusting their tails, attach worms to their heads, dunk under the water and wait for a Shellder to swim by and attach itself. Those few who succeed are renowned among Slowpoke and Slowbro for their power and experience, and the Shellder on their head quickens their reflexes and balances their upper bodies until they can stand again. They are called Slowking and are known far and wide for their wisdom and psychic powers. Chapter number 253 Stay or Leave. Dragonair dreamed of blue sky and blue sea stretching from horizon to horizon with no end in sight. She felt utterly complete as if she was meant to be there, suspended between the earth and heavens, just flying. It felt like home. She felt utterly free, as if all her worries, all her insecurities, all her disgust at herself had been left on the ground. As if nothing else mattered but this, not her power, not her smarts, or her age. Then again, she also felt stronger than ever. She felt as if he could do anything. For ages, she just flew, and the blue sea gave way to bright white ice and snow. She noticed it immediately though when the blue sky became obscured with thick clouds. She felt unease rise but brushed it off as just a storm. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off though. She saw something in the distance, a hazy structure, a good place to rest at least and wait out the storm, but the closer she got the more her unease grew. Fear lanced through her though at the sudden knowledge that she was not alone. Before she could dodge she saw him. Her mate didn't even glance at her. As if she meant nothing, as if she didn't have any value before her status. Dragonair's eyes jolted up as she saw Austin and Lucario discussing something. Meanwhile Haunter was poking the tree curiously. Haunter had even made a stalagmite monocle as she examined the tree. Dragonair slowly slithered forward but she accidentally hit a stalagmite which echoed throughout the cave. Dragonair gulped and turned around as she saw Austin, Lucario, and Haunter looking at her with a deadpan faces. Dragonair could only smile nervously as she felt scared for her life. What did these monsters want with her? South of Cerulean City, abandoned power plant. The tunnels that ran underground vibrated constantly, as several Volturb and Electrode rolled their way through them, with each of the electric types now returning to their own devices. It had been a significant occasion, especially since they had gotten out onto the ground after several years now, except the occasional member of their kin rolling out from time to time. Slowly, the electric types vanished into the darkness, leaving a lone member, who silently pushed himself into one of their more reverent spaces, the same one in which the Great One slumbered, the avian god of thunder. The lone watcher, who had observed the proceedings over the past day, silently positioned himself in wait for the avian god of thunder to awake and return to the land. He didn't know when the avian god thunder would awake. But some humans had intruded this place where the avian god of thunder slumbered. How dare these mortals disturb a god? The electric type thought as Executive Ariana limped through while her Drapion captured all the electric types that tried to attack them. Ariana gritted her teeth as she saw the bolts of electricity attack Drapion. She remembered the shock that went through her body when she battled against that brat in the SS. And now as a result had multiple incurable medical conditions like seizures, irregular heartbeat, insomnia, and sciatica. Ariana's grin sadistically as if she would enjoy torturing these electric types. Dose. A cry of an avian echoed throughout the entire power plant like a clap of thunder echoing through the sky. Austin gulped and held out the bait as a peace offering. Dragonair growled though, eyeing his hip where Austin's pokeballs were. Austin quickly realized what was wrong and carefully and slowly took his pokeballs from his hip and tossed it to the side. The pseudo-dragon immediately stopped growling and looked at him more curiously. Austin gestured with the bait to coax her to take it. Dragonair glanced between Austin and the bait in his hand. Dragonair reached out with her whole body and took the Pokémon bait. She backed up and glanced again between Austin and Lucario before chowing down. Dragonair ate it quickly and looked up to see if there was more, her eyes wide and at ease. Austin shook his head and brought his hands up to show that was the only one. No. Sorry, I don't have any more. For a moment the dragon Pokémon just stared at Austin and warily glanced at Lucario, who just raised his paw in a waving motion. Dragonair darted over to a tree full of long blueberries. Haunter curiously looked at Dragonair with her monocle. Dragonair chose to ignore the giant alpha shiny Haunter, who dejectedly sighed. Dragonair pulled a few berries off the tree, coming back and holding one out to Austin and Lucario each. Austin blinked at the reversed position but was reluctant to take it. He and Lucario had tried those berries before, they taste dry and sour to them, and they were extremely bitter too, but he doesn't mind that as much. He eyed the berry warily but couldn't help but accept when Dragonair gestures for him to take it, coaxing him just as he had. He looked between the berry and the pseudo-legendary, wondering if he can get away with not eating it, but the dragon's gaze was expectant. Austin pulled in a fortifying breath before taking a harsh bite out of it to break through its hard skin. He immediately wanted to spit it out, but the dragon was still watching him. He smiles, but Dragonair just narrowed its eyes, stretching its long throat out and making an obvious gulp. It took him a moment before he reluctantly choked it down. On the sides, Lucario was enjoying every second of this. The pseudo-legendary Pokémon brightened, giving a happy chirp as it holds the last berry. It seems content with how much she shared and brings the other berry to her mouth. Austin meanwhile took this opportunity to bow to Dragonair and say, "I wanted to apologize for calling you old. It wasn't in any form of disrespect, I was just admiring your beauty. All the books I had read about dragon Pokémon told me that dragon types loved any compliment to their age, even so I must apologize for my words." Dragonair slowly nodded and pushed Austin's head with her mouth as a form of acceptance of the apology. "You can get up, you idiot." Austin rolled his eyes at Lucario's harsh words as he looked into Dragonair's eyes. "Dragonair, can I ask you something?" The determination and seriousness in Austin's eyes caused Dragonair to straighten herself. "Don't you wish to be a Dragonite?" Austin's words caused Dragonair to freeze in shock. "I know my words seem unbelievable, but currently, I am on a quest to destroy a villain's organization, not because I am a hero, but rather it is out of my selfishness and desire for revenge. I need powerful Pokémon for that job, and you, my beautiful friend, fit that description. So Dragonair, would you like to leave this place and soar through the sky as a Dragonite, or stay here and rot away your life, your potential, and your chance to get powerful?" Austin said as he pushed a safari ball towards Dragonair, who just glanced at the Pokeball while she was in deep thought due to Austin's words. Make paragraph. The most difficult problem in electrical engineering is the same one that has plagued mankind since the inventors of the light bulb started their famous experiments: how do we keep the Magnemite away? Historically, a rare Pokémon is occasionally found feeding in thunderstorms or preying on other electronic types such as Pikachu. The electronic revolution has seen the population of this magnetic pest of a Pokémon explode. Many solutions have been tried to protect man-made electricity from Magnemite. Some bury the wires or add a layer of dirt to the insulation, while others use controlled burns or even other magnets to drive them away. Some have attempted to set up habitats such as the Kanto power plant to lure them away, but this has merely caused their numbers to grow. None of these techniques are completely successful, and research has continued into finding methods to secure wires from this Pokémon, whose appetite alone costs Kanto billions of pain a year in economic damage. For now, they are most typically warded off by other Pokémon, typically fire types such as Growlithe, as they are prone to levitating on anti-gravity before feeding. Others simply rely on local electric Pokémon, at times even other Magnemite, to act as generators, eschewing wires and circuits entirely. This does not ensure the Magnemite will keep away, but it does ensure that if any approach, they will be located quickly and can be battled or captured. This is a stopgap measure, not a solution. Annoying as they are, Magnemite power outages remain a fact of life for the people of the Pokémon world. Chapter number 254: The Miracle Seed. Dragon-type Pokémon were unlike any Pokémon species. Pokémon are pretty easy to understand once you learn why they behave in certain ways. That was true for all Pokémon of all types. Dragons were the most honor-based besides fighting types. They didn't rampage often, but when they did, there was always destruction left behind. Austin had learned this directly from Lucario, but these words seemed to be missing from all the books he had read on dragon types. Looks like Lucario's practical experience was better than these most modern Pokémon breeders and the books they published on the subject. Dragonair stared at Austin in consideration. He was being judged by the pseudo-legendary for something. The room was silent as Dragonair and Austin sized each other up like two dragons getting ready to do battle. Lucario had told Austin that if he wanted Dragonair's loyalty, then he couldn't back down, even if it meant getting stomped on. Dragon types weren't considered one of the most dangerous types for nothing. Neither the dragon nor the human could back down from each other. Dragons demanded loyalty, honor, and truthfulness above everything. They hated weak-hearted people, and would purposely go out of their way to possibly destroy them. When someone dealt with them, they had to adapt, and quickly. Austin had been warned by Lucario that Dragonair wasn't like Charmeleon, who had accepted him as his master before his draconic nature kicked in. With Lucario's words in mind, Austin knew better than most what would happen if he bowed to pseudo-legendary rather than the other way around. Their eyes dared each other to back down, not caring how they looked to others. This was a dragon ritual. Austin smiled, eyes locked on the Pokémon in front of him. "I can say with certainty that you could become the most powerful Dragonite in the world." I need Pokémon like you to have any chance of getting anywhere in my goal. I need powerful friends, like you. What do you say? Will you work with me? He asked calmly, holding out a hand. Austin wanted to take a moment to admire the Dragonair. Its scales were mostly a light blue, except on its stomach, where there was a gleaming white, but during this ritual, he couldn't bow down. This Pokémon and everyone he had read was known for their absolute loyalty. They were unmovable Pokémon. They would always trust their trainers impeccably, no matter the situation. If the possibility of having a potential powerhouse hadn't sold it, the loyalty part certainly did it. Finally, the pseudo-legendary nodded to him, bowing its head slightly in submission. Austin took out a Pokeball and held it in front of Dragonair. The Dragonair responded by pressing its nose on the Safari Ball button and allowing itself inside. The ball made a dinging noise and pseudo-legendary had officially become a part of Austin's Pokémon. Austin sighed in relief as he sat on the cave floor. Taking out his Pokédex, Austin saw a voice message from Professor Oak. Ash, my boy, first of all, I am happy to see that you are getting back to the swing of things, but I have to ask, did you have to send me a Rehorn? It has almost demolished my lab. Austin chuckled as he heard the message before he scanned Dragonair's Pokeball. Dexter's voice called out. Dragonair, the dragon Pokémon. A mystical Pokémon that exudes a gentle aura. Legend has it that it can change climate conditions. Dexter, the Pokédex beeped. This Dragonair is female and the ability is Shed Skin. Currently, this Dragonair knows Leer, Thunder Wave, Twister, Wrap, Dragon Tail, Agility, Slam, Aqua Tail, Safeguard, Rain Dance, Dragon Rush, Extreme Speed, and Mist. The age of this Dragonair is 17 years and 2 months. Holy shit! Austin whistled as he heard Dragonair's age. Congratulations on the catch. Thanks, Lucario. Of course, without me, you couldn't do it. And you ruined it. I didn't ruin anything, I just told the facts. Keep telling yourself that, Grandpa. Stop calling me that, I am not that old. You are 569 years old if I counted correctly. Lucario huffed as he grumbled, those 556 years don't count. Hey, what did you say? I said that don't forget about tomorrow's aura training. Well, unlike you, Grandpa, I have already set a few dozen alarms for tomorrow. Why so many? So, you could hear it in your old age. Didn't someone ever teach you to respect your elders? Ha, you admit it. Admit what? That you are old. I didn't admit anything. Lucario and Austin's bickering stopped as Haunter pulled Austin to her side. Whoa! Austin cried out in surprise as he found himself in Haunter's arm, who just grinned in response. Not to rain on your parade, but could you put me down? Haunter's arms phased out, causing Austin to hit the floor butt first. Ow, come on, Austin said as he rubbed his butt, causing Haunter and Lucario to break out laughing. Really funny guys, Austin said as he tried to stand up. Should we bring that pervert to treat your gluteus maximus? Austin couldn't help but laugh at Lucario's joke. After a minute, Austin and Lucario frowned as they saw Haunter's strange find. Embedded into the center of the underwater tree trunk was a pale green seed. It looks like a seed, Lucario said, causing Austin to glance at him incredulously. Really? I could tell. Why? Do we need to treat your eyesight along with your butt? Lucario countered back before Haunter slapped the duo. Okay, we'll stop, Austin said as he raised his Pokédex to scan the pale green seed. Dexter, the Pokédex beeped out. Scan complete. The item appears to resemble a miracle seed. Note, a miracle seed is a special type of seed that grows from the core of the grass-type Pokémon that has died from old age. It is believed by many spiritualists that a miracle seed is the last gift a gentle grass-type leaves for the world. Well, that explains a lot, Lucario said, causing Austin and Haunter to look at him. The duo was waiting for an explanation. Because this seed is radiating a lot of grass-attributed ori. Do you think this tree could have grown from the miracle seed? Austin asked as he stroked his hand along the bark of the tree. It felt nice to the touch. Make paragraph. For a long time, paleontologists suspected that Magnemite and Magneton, steel-type Pokémon with no organic component whatsoever, which feed on electricity, could not possibly have evolved naturally. And likewise, theologians held them out as proof of Arceus' divine hand in the creation of the universe, a Pokémon that the theory of evolution could not explain. In truth, neither of them had the answer, for the truth lay beyond the stars. Observers have long noted that large groups of magneton appear during periods of intense sunspots activity and that they emitted powerful microwave radiation. Recent discoveries have shown it to be of such similar frequency to the remnants of the Big Bang that the fact that this radiation was uniform throughout the universe, save where magneton is located, was only discovered a couple of decades ago in this world. It has taken some time, however, to notice these realities and assemble them into a coherent theory on the origins of this Pokémon, a task which still has not been completed. Current conjecture holds that magneton, whatever they are more like small celestial bodies than other Pokémon. They are created out of heavy metals drawn together by gravity, yet made distinct from one another by magnetism and electrified by fusion. Typically, they settle at the cores of planets or stars and lose their distinct form, but occasionally they are ejected from stars and fall to our planet, or land here after drifting aimlessly through the universe in hibernation for eons. Magnetites, for their part, are theorized to be the result of magneton breaking up in the atmosphere, while magnezone occurs when gravity outweighs magnetism and crushes the three magneton portions together. Chapter number 255 Bribbery. POV change. Fuchsia City, Public Park. Austin was exhausted trying to feed everyone. Wordturtle and Ninjask didn't want to eat their boring old breakfast. Charmeleon was glaring at Dragonair as he couldn't accept the pseudo-legendary as a part of the family. Austin chalked it down to jealousy or maybe territorial aggression. He had put down a notification to talk to Charmeleon about his attitude towards Dragonair, who had been happily accepted into the family. Haunter had spooked Ditto, which had led to him turning into a doormat, while Kingler and Butterfree were extremely bored. Firo refused to sit with anyone while Pidgeot had gone out to fly for a bit. Bulbasaur would have normally handled everything, but today he was absorbing the miracle seed into his body. Clefable and Caesar were reading a book they had found in their room at the Pokémon Center, while Pikachu was eating his favorite ice cream ketchup combo. "You know, looking at this scene, I don't think you are a good trainer," Lucario commented as he happily drank in hot cocoa. "So when do we start with aura training?" "Well, after you sort out this mess," Lucario answered back. "Why don't you go to Dragonair? I am sure her hints are obvious." Austin jabbed at Lucario with a smirk. "Oh, really? I think I will. At least she is better company than you," Lucario replied as he got up. Austin sighed while checking out his Pokédex. Rhyhorn. The Spike's Pokémon. Its body is clad in a thick hide, and its tackles topple buildings. Unfortunately, it is not smart. This Rhyhorn is male. Current moveset: Horn Attack, Smackdown, Bulldoze, and Rock Blast. Its ability is Rock Head. Austin nodded while a plan for training Rhyhorn came to mind. Turning to the search bar on his Pokédex, Austin searched about Rhyhorn on the Pokénet, which seemed to have blown up in popularity these past few weeks. Rhyhorn was, in general, a pretty normal Pokémon, albeit one with high offensive capabilities. Their major negative attribute was their lack of intelligence, which was not an option for a wit-based battle. However, their evolutions Radon, and its final form Rhyperiors were absolute monsters in all senses of the term. A Rhyperior was easily able to give a Charizard a hard time, considering that their hide was immune to even magma. On the other hand, the amount of hard work required to evolve a Rhyhorn into one of those was staggering, though justified, since the final evolution was the epitome of badassery. Austin read the form he had found with a slight chuckle. Ding! Hearing the notifications sound out, Austin clicked on it to see a voice message from Bill. "Hey there Ash, you know sometimes I wonder just what kind of luck you have when you sent a pink Magikarp my way, but after a few tests, I found that the Magikarp wasn't shiny, rather it was due to the excess intake of pumpkin berries in its diet that it had such a unique coloration. And congratulations on catching a Dragonair, I sometimes envy your luck." "Oh, yeah, Ash, I wanted to tell you this, but can you come by the lighthouse that I stay at? I want to conduct a few tests on your unique Charmeleon and I want to give you something." Austin was intrigued, but sudden noise caused him to look up, where he saw Kitty and Dottie coming towards them. Yellow hopped down Dottie with a scared Dratini wrapped around her neck like a scarf and Pico riding in a pocket. Ash, huff, Yellow, breathe in slowly. Why are you in such a rush so early in the morning? Look at what I found. Yellow handed over a pamphlet while huffing. Austin took the pamphlet that showed an advertisement for the Battle Chateau, which will be hosted in a few days. "Not that I am happy for you, but was it that important for you to run over here?" Yellow blushed and looked down as she joined her pointer fingers while doing semi-clockwise and semi-anti-clockwise motions with her wrists. Yellow asked while puckering her lips. "Could you help me train?" "No." "Wait, why?" You don't need me to train, I am more worried about the competition. Austin casually said as he went back to reading the weird articles that he was finding on the Pokénet. Come on, I need help. I am really bad. Yellow said, causing Austin to glance up. Please. Yellow stared at Austin with puppy dog eyes, causing Austin to sigh, making Yellow smile, thinking she had convinced Austin. Pikachu and the others meanwhile were enjoying this while Haunter had made a betting table on what Austin would say. Everyone had placed a pile of berries on poor Ditto, who was holding back his tears. Please, don't use me like a table. Ditto whispered out, but no one was able to listen to the shy little guy. Pikachu, Aerodactyl, and a few others were betting on Austin saying yes, while Lucario, Firo, and a few were betting on Austin saying no. No. Austin said it bluntly, causing Yellow to freeze in shock. Meanwhile, some of the Pokémons were cheering while some grumbled. You know, Ash. Yellow's voice caused everyone to stop. If you help me train, you can have this, Yellow said as pushed a cigarette toward Austin, who looked between the cigarette and Yellow. This is mine. Only if you train me. No, I am saying, did you take this from my pack? Austin asked, causing Yellow to whistle as she looked to the side while trying to slowly take back the cigarette. Austin placed his hand down. Eevee. Fine, I will train you, Austin said, causing Yellow to break out with a bright smile. Sigh, to think I would get bribed into something with my stuff. Meanwhile, an argument broke out between the Pokémons. Who won? Aerodactyl asked as Lucario got up and took a handful of berries. I did. Let's put it up for a vote, Pikachu suggested. No, we won since humans choose yes in the end. Charmeleon said with a growl as he glared at Lucario. Stop glaring at me, little lizard, or I will sand attack you, Lucario answered with a smirk as he popped a berry into his mouth. You know sand attack? Pikachu curiously asked. Aerodactyl looked at the lineup as he curiously asked. Bro, who here learns sand attack? I do. I do. Butterfree said, hopping up and down. I don't, Charmeleon growled, scratching at his face. A sharp whistle cut through their argument, redirecting their attention to Lucario, looming over them and looking angry at the fact that they had fallen to bickering in his presence. Shut up, the lot of you, Lucario demanded. Sand attack is as basic as this. And with that, he scooped up a handful of dirt and flung it away. There. That's it. You throw dirt in your opponent's eye. The end. And you don't think you could learn that? Hey, stop changing the subject. We won this. Charmeleon said as his glare increased. Oh, Lucario asked. Meanwhile poor Ditto was in tears. Please stop arguing. Ditto whispered as he whimpered. Oh, make paragraph. It would seem odd that a Pokémon known primarily for spinning leeks and tasting delicious would be the source of the term Farfetch'd, or Farfetch'd as many grammar purists insist, but given the stories which have sprung up around it, it is not as bizarre as it appears. Some of them are fairly sensible and plausible if always heard from a friend of a friend and never quite true. The restaurant which secretly domesticated the notoriously untamable Farfetch'd is in reality serving Seduct meat. The magic leek that doubles their attack power is real, although their defenses and speed remain so poor that a trainer would be lucky to make the Pokémon League with them, let alone win it as they claimed. And then there are the stories that are more out there. The president of Unova has had to deny rumors that his father was a Farfetch'd spread by his political opponents, and it speaks to the absurdity of politics in that region that the rumors even started. Likewise, the girl in the popular leak spin internet meme is not secretly a slave of a Farfetch'd colony in the Caei Islands, and the idea that global warming is caused by a Pokémon that is neither fire nor ice type is too silly to even bother refuting. Despite the obvious ridiculousness of these ideas, Farfetch'd continue to be a magnet for strange tales. I urge any readers of this Pokédex not to spread these ridiculous rumors, and to be careful to source any information about Farfetch'd they discover before believing it or passing it on. Chapter number 256 Pokelantis. POV change. Fuchsia City, Southeastern Forest. Austin and Yellow walked along the grassy pathway in the forests of Kanto. All they saw were trees while Austin held onto Munna, who was happily enjoying herself. Suddenly they saw something on top of the trees. Movement. Leaves stirring. His eyes focused and Austin saw another creature. As a small Pidgey flew off carrying a caterpie in its beak. The bird that sat atop the tree glanced dismissively in Austin's direction, then it flapped its wings and flew away, disappearing behind the treeline. Should we stop that Pidgey? Munna innocently asked. No, let it be. It is the cycle of life and we shouldn't interfere with such things. But isn't it a human's nature to interfere with the balance of nature for their amusement and greed? Munna's words caused Austin to sweat drop since she had said it in such a childlike voice. How about this? I don't answer whatever that was and you'll get a lollipop when we get back. Yeah. Where are we going? Yellow asked as she readjusted the scarf around her neck that revealed the adorable Dratini around her neck who was sleeping. To anyone looking outside, Yellow seemed to be wearing a heavy scarf in the middle of summer. Lucario, where are we going? When we get there, you'll know, Lucario answered back while he enjoyed Austin's annoyance. Well, you heard our bully, Yellow, Austin answered back while handing Yellow a water bottle. I am not thirsty, Ash. Trust me, you'll need it. Austin said while opting to not mention that it was due to her wearing Dratini like a scarf in the middle of summer while Austin wore sweatpants and a t-shirt with his jacket wrapped around his waist. Stop flirting and more walking, Lucario commanded, causing Yellow to blush. Austin meanwhile was not fazed a bit. Pika, pie. Pikachu cried out to Austin as he did a grabbing motion with his paws to Austin. What is it, buddy? Pie. Pikachu dramatically pointed at the water bottle in Austin's hands. You want to drink? Pikachu shook his head and did a grabbing motion causing Austin to hand over his bottle to the electric mouse. Chat. Pikachu cried out in ecstasy as he felt the coolness of the water bottle against his fur. As everyone walked, the scenery of the forest was beautiful though, colors began to form more vibrant and the air felt far fresher than you would find back on Earth. Seeing Pokémon everywhere was also neat as Austin came across a Weedle and Metapod and a lot more arthropods. Austin and Yellow saw a few bird Pokémon in the sky and even spotted one herd of Rapidash with a Ponyta. Most Pokémon stayed out of their way, they were skittish like real animals. Did anyone ever die to Weedle? Austin morbidly thought. The thing with Pokémon was that almost every creature was as deadly as a machine gun, worst in most cases. Even a Weedle you would run away from in the Pokémon anime and game had poison and a stinger that could kill you with just a headbutt. If poison doesn't kill you, bacteria will. Not all Pokémon were this peaceful, the aforementioned Rapidash made it clear to the group that they had to stay away from the small Ponyta. Austin and Yellow ducked under a few vines as they found themselves in what appeared to be a small cavern lit by a similar luminescent moss as that found in the Safari Zone's underwater cave. Whoa, pretty, Yellow said as she touched the moss on the ground before crying out in pain. Ow! Careful with that, Austin said in worry. Don't worry, I am fine, Yellow reassured Austin before going back to touching the moss. This time she would be more careful. Yellow told herself while Austin turned to Lucario. Why are we here, Lucario? Weren't we going to start with aura training? Austin asked as Lucario pointed towards a small pond in the middle of this cavern. An underwater pond. Thank you for that, genius, I could see that, Lucario sarcastically said before he shut up from Austin's glare. Remember the theory you told me about? The one about aura. Was there another theory you told me about? Touché. So that night, when I took a stroll, you disappeared. Austin cut Lucario off only to get bonked in the head. When I took a stroll that night, I thought of how to approach your method and then I remembered the ways of the ancient Poklantis warriors. Lucario's words caused Austin's eyes to widen as he remembered the anime episode about the sealed king of Poklantis. Something wrong? No, continue with your tales, Master Lucario. That has a nice ring to it. Well, anyway, where was I? Ancient Poklantis warriors, Austin said, causing Lucario to pat his head. The ancient Poklantis warriors were essentially a group of elite aura wielders who had special runes burnt into their skin. Each rune was used to store the life force of multiple pseudo-legendaries. With his elite army, the king of Poklantis hunted down the god of life, Ho-Oh. Lucario finished his tale only to find Austin a few feet away from him with Austin, Pikachu, and Munna looking at him incredulously. Guys, I think Lucario needs some pills for that insanity of his, Austin commented as Pikachu and Munna nodded at Austin's assessment. I am not going insane, Lucario shouted out in anger. Oh, really? Then why are we going to perform the ritual of the insane people? Austin asked. Lucario face-palmed, when did I ever say that we are going to perform the ritual from Poklantis? Like a few minutes ago. Sigh. Lucario huffed and puffed out as he pinched the bridge of his snout. Let me rephrase my words, I remembered the ritual of Poklantis warriors. I began working on constructing something similar to what you had suggested. Oh, thank God, for a second I thought you had finally lost it. Lucario suppressed his desire to slam Austin into the ground. Just get into the lake and I'll do the rest, Lucario instructed. Is it going to be painful? Austin asked. It might be. Then it's good that I brought some painkillers. Austin said as he searched in his bag, causing Lucario to kick him. Whoa! Austin cried out at the surprise kick. Splash! The surface of the pond split apart as Austin rose. Lucario! What the hell? What? I was just helping you into the lake. Not cool. Lucario placed his finger into the pond before turning to the frowning Austin. Seems pretty cool to me. Austin shook his head as Munna and Pikachu were helping Yellow, who had gotten her to skirt lodged into a crevice. So do I like, dive in. No, I want you to fly into the sky. Of course, dive in. Austin rolled his eyes at Lucario's sarcasm as he took a few painkillers. Make paragraph. In the days before Team Rocket, Celadon City had been conquered by a force led by the fighting dojo of Saffron City Gym. The Ponyta had been rounded up, seized from their stables, and briefly conscripted into the army, although their tendency to burn their riders led to their dismissal and or execution. The air was patrolled by Charizard, the ground by Dodrio. Atrocities were rampant and it seemed that there was no way to communicate them to the outside world. They would have been right if it had not been for one young journalist hero and her dodo. With more heroism than caution, or perhaps more courage than brains, she had hopped onto her Pokémon and made her way to the west end of the city, dodging roadblocks and soldiers along the way. The city walls were difficult for flyers, who would be shot down by cannon or Charizard flame, and land Pokémon, who could not scale them, but her dodo cleared them in a single bound, yet stayed under or around the projectile attacks. She had made it to the cycling road, but she had not yet gained freedom. The horde chasing her grew ever larger by the minute, for Saffron had many allies among the biker gangs. Her dodo stayed one step ahead of them, avoiding attack after attack and outrunning them with amazing speed until she made it to the safety of Fuchsia City. Her pictures and reports outraged the people of the Pokémon world, and a vast coalition of armies soon freed her city from the clutches of Saffron. When interviewed about her efforts, she would only say that Dodo was good at obstacle courses and amazing at running away. Chapter number 257, Aura Awakening Part 1. Austin's POV. I couldn't help but shudder at the cold water against my skin. Just get into the water, Lucario shouted out, causing me to glare at him. Why don't you come here and swim in this goddamn freezing water? Pikachu said as he glanced toward Yellow, who was sound asleep. Hearing Pikachu's cheers, I couldn't help but smile as I dove into the water. Lucario nodded and walked up to the lake as his paws entered the water. A bluish hue began to emit out of Lucario's paws that began to spread out in the form of ripples on the surface of the water. Pikachu and Munna were mesmerized by the beautiful display as the entire pond lit up with blue light. Deep in the water, Austin couldn't see much, but the aura ripples began to light up the entire pond so much so that he was forced to close his eyes from the brightness. Wisps of aura began to attach themselves to Austin's body, who couldn't help but smile at the warmth he felt. It was as if he was back in his mother's arms. Meanwhile, above the water, Lucario frowned. What? How is this possible? Lucario thought as he sensed that Austin's body was riddled with scars made of aura. These aura scars were so deeply ingrained into Ash's body as if they had been done when he was just born. Lucario frowned, since these aura scars meant that Austin wouldn't be able to access aura through the conventional way due to these aura scars essentially being blockers to stop the flow of aura. But even then, the biggest problem was how in the distortion realm was Austin still alive. Those aura scars were essentially parasites seeping away his body's life force. If it wasn't for his absurd amount of aura, Austin would be dead by now. Whoever had caused these aura scars was an amateur at best in the ways of aura. Lucario snarled as he thought. The aura is with me. Lucario's aura increased while he thought. Thank me, these aura scars weren't done by an aura master. I can free Austin from these parasites. But the question remains, who had done this to Austin's body? Austin meanwhile found himself in a weird forest. Each tree had a weird kanji symbol attached to it, with chains coming out of the kanji symbol. Those chains stretched out from the kanji symbols into large spheres of chains hanging above a gigantic statue of a white equine Pokémon resembling a Kylan with a grey, vertically striated underside. The striated pattern had similar recurrences on the underside of its mane, tail, and face. Its four pointed feet are tipped with gold hooves. Its long mane juts away from its head, and its face is grey, with green eyes and red pupils, and a green circular pattern below its eyes. The statue also had a streak of gold coloration on its head, and ears that point upward. Its neck was fairly long, with two pairs of extrusions to the sides, and a flap-like feature on the neck's underside that was colored white like much of the body. The statue also has a golden cross-like wheel attached to its body by its round abdomen. What the fuck? Austin said in confusion as he looked upon the statue of the god of Pokémon, Arceus. Why was a statue of Arceus doing here? Austin thought as ripples of blue began to spread through the sky. Is that Lucario's aura? Austin thought curiously as wisps of blue crashed onto the chains, causing Austin to fall in pain. What the hell just happened? Why is my body burning up? Ag. Austin cried out in pain as more and more wisps of aura crashed into the chains which could no longer handle it as cracks began to form. Crack! 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 With one final push, the wisps of aura cracked open the chain sphere, revealing a mass of red energy that blasted apart the chains holding it. In the form of a tidal wave, the extremely absurd amount of aura washed over the downed Austin. Pika! Above the water, Pikachu cried out anxiously as he saw the water turn red, causing the electric mouse to look at Lucario. Don't worry, that's just his aura. Lucario said as sweat dripped down his snout. The entire pond began to transform into a crimson red as Lucario's aura increased. He never expected Austin's aura to be so great in quantity, but he needed to complete this ritual. The aura is with me. Rhoda Kingdom. In the gardens of Cameron's castle, Riley and Lucario were meditating when they felt the pulse of the world's aura shift. Lucario, it's coming from Kanto. The world's aura is in disarray. Riley spoke in a desperate tone to Lucario. Yes, Master. I feel it also, this blindingly potent aura is acting like a beacon, Lucario responded. Lucario's ears slowly rose as he concentrated. It was then they heard the chime. The chime was like the invisible voice of the world's aura. When Arceus created the ancient laws that governed Pokémon and humans alike, he gave the world an echo of his will. The world would balance itself like yin and yang. And its voice was called the chime. Like the kind that was used by the ancient priests and maidens that protected the long-forgotten god of Pokémon, Arceus temples and the shrines. Master, someone is resonating with the world's aura. Lucario exclaimed in fear. Riley knew what that meant, as did Lucario. Riley clenched his fists and scrunched his eyes shut. The Chosen One is awakening. Make paragraph. Unlike Empoleon and Magmar, Dodrio is not a flightless bird. Nor is their apparent flight, as some have imagined, accomplished by jumping up into the air so high that they reach the heights of their more typical avian ancestors. Within their ball-like bodies, Dodrio possesses retractable, nearly invisible wings which are small in proportion to their bodies but can carry them over short distances. Few have seen these wings over the years, and fewer have lived to tell about them, but as for those who did, legends abound. Ancient Dodrio, they say, had large orange wings as long as their necks which they used for balance, which were forced into hiding by Ho-Oh or Lugia or Arceus as punishment for trying to outrace the legendary dogs, or giving the song to man. The legends are murky, of course, varying from culture to culture, but a surprisingly high number have agreed that Dodrio in ancient times had wings that were lost as a form of divine punishment. In reality, the wings were not lost. The Dodrio in the original legend did not have his wings stripped. He got word of the god's wrath from a metapod and was inspired by its cocoon to hide its wings as well. Its descendants to this day are reluctant to use wing-based attacks or even reveal their wings, but can be taught with training. Whatever legendary that Dodrio once offended has long since forgotten its grudge. All that remains is an immense sense of guilt and shame that has entered the ancestral memory of the Dodrio, along with small, retractable wings. This is a Christmas one-shot. Hope you enjoy and happy holidays to all. The holidays have arrived in the Kanto region. For Austin, it was time to celebrate the holidays with his friends. Today, we find our heroes in their winter clothing passing through the snow-filled streets of Viridian City before they decide to visit Pallet Town, where Ash's mother, Delia, is planning a Christmas party at her house. Needless to say, the gang is excited to have fun on Christmas while they get to see Ash's home. So Ash, are you excited to visit your mom after all this time away? Asked Brock as they walked through the streets. Yeah, Austin answered as sweat dripped down his face. He found it weird that he would for the first time celebrate Christmas without his actual family. I'll bet Pallet Town must be nice, hey? Guessed Yellow. Oh yes, Austin exclaimed. It's nice and quiet there, and there are also lots of friendly Pokémon too. Sounds good to me, Misty exclaimed as she narrowed her eyes at Lucario, who was playing with the ornaments Yellow had attached to his tail. Are you excited to celebrate our first Christmas? Austin asked his partner. Pikachu. Pikachu happily squeaked. The gang soon left Viridian City and they finally made it to Pallet Town. So this is where you live, huh, Ash? It's nice. Yellow said. Piku. Choo Choo agreed. As they made their way through Ash's hometown, they finally arrived at a large house with a small building on the front lawn with a Mr. Mime trying desperately to clean it from snow. Well, here we are. Austin declared while putting on his Ash mask. Home sweet home. Upon hearing his voice, Mr. Mime ran and tackled Austin and hugged him. Mr. Mime sure is happy to see Ash. Brock. No kidding. Agreed Misty. It must miss him. Ah, come on Mr. Mime. Yellow pouted. I want you to hug me too. Lucario looked Yellow as if she had gone insane. Mr. Mime then approached Yellow and hugged her while Lucario took a step back while he charged up his aura, ready to kill this freak of nature. Pikachu and Austin's sweat dropped at Lucario's fear of Mr. Mime. Ha 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 ha. Yellow laughed. You're so cute Mr. Mime. Piku. Choo Choo squeaked happily. Welcome home Ash. Sounded a voice. The group looked to see a smiling Delia standing at the opened front door. Ash. You are finally home. She squealed as she ran toward Austin, tackled him in a tight hug, and showered him with kisses on the cheek. Pikachu managed to leap off of Austin's shoulder before the collision. Austin however was too stunned to react. Pika. Pikachu happily squeaked as he jumped into Delia's arms and hugged her. Oh hello Pikachu. I've missed you too. Delia greeted the mouse Pokémon as she hugged him back and kissed him on the forehead. Chee. Pikachu squealed in delight from the mother's kiss. Oh right. Mom, I'd like to meet my friends. This is Brock and Misty, the city gym leader and Yellow. Austin said as he introduced his friends. Hello, Mrs. Ketchum. Greeted Brock. It's a real pleasure to meet you. Same here. Misty added. Hello, Mrs. Ketchum, Yellow said as she approached the mother of her crush. It's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you. Delia smiled. It has only been a year but looks how you've grown into such a fine young lady. Thank you, Mrs. Ketchum. Yellow thanked while blushing at the woman's kind gesture. Well, now that we're all here, how about some lunch? Delia suggested with a kind smile. I have made my baby boy's favorite deep dish chili dog pizza. Everyone turned to Austin who quickly improvised and exclaimed. All right. Ash cheered with his mouth drooling. Lucario coughed into his hand causing everyone to turn to the Aura Pokémon who looked embarrassed as he kicked Austin's foot. Oh, this is Lucario, Mom, Austin said as Lucario's sweat dropped at the lackluster introduction. Oh, neat, Delia said as she patted Lucario's head before going into the kitchen. Lucario glared at Austin and asked, is this how you introduce your master to your mom? What? Were you expecting some kind of fireworks show when I introduced you? Austin curiously asked as Lucario looked to the other side while whistling. Come to the kitchen to eat, Delia called as everyone slowly moved to the kitchen leaving behind a close-eyed Lucario who peeked out as he saw that everyone had left. Hey, Misty called out to Lucario, catching the Aura Pokémon's attention as he caught something that Misty threw at him. Looking at the white pill in his paws, Lucario looked confused as he looked at the water-type gym leader who answered with a smile. That's a sleeping pill, maybe in your dreams. You can have some respect from your student, Misty exclaimed with a smile before going back to the kitchen as Lucario angrily crushed the sleeping pill. Mr. Mime tried to comfort the Aura Pokémon but before the psychic type could even touch the Aura Pokémon, Lucario angrily exclaimed, touch me and you won't have an arm to sweep with anymore. Mr. Mime sweated before slowly moving away from the angry Aura Pokémon. The next day, it was December 23rd and as it turns out, Delia was planning to throw a Christmas party for the house on Christmas Eve and required some help to prepare. Naturally, Ash and the gang were more than happy to pitch in and help out. Brock decided to bake some cookies with Yellow, Dottie, Tenty, Dish, and Any helping out. Misty was working on decorating the backyard with help from her Pokémon and Austin, Lucario, and Delia decorated the interior of the house for the party. As they decorated the house, Delia couldn't help but notice Yellow constantly glancing at her son with a dreamy smile, giving out a dreamy sigh, and a small blush appearing on her face without him knowing. This brought a smile to her face as she figured out the reason. A while later, Austin and Pikachu then left the house saying that he is going to take a bus to Viridian City and run an errand. Delia then approached Yellow. I know that look. She teased which startled her and reddened her face. WH what? What look? What was I looking at? She stuttered. You like my son, don't you? Delia teased again. Yellow sighed, figuring there is no point in hiding from the mother of her crush. It was bad enough that Brock and her best friend Misty knew about her huge crush on Ash, now it was his mother who knows. Why not Cynthia, the Sinnoh queen? Her uncle, Wilton. Am I that obvious? She asked. Like a Squirtle without its shell. Giggled Delia. So tell me, how long have you had these feelings for my son? Since the day I met him at the Viridian Forest, Serena replied. He was so kind to help me catch my first Pokémon and guide me out of the forest I got lost in. As I went on a journey with him, I came to know the real him. He's also been the biggest supporter in my battles along with Brock and Misty. I admit it, I'm past the point of just a mere crush. I'm truly in love with Ash Ketchum. I'm sorry if this is just so much of a surprise for you, but... Oh, I think it's wonderful, Yellow. Delia beamed. You do? Yellow asked in surprise. Oh yes, said Delia. But what if Ash doesn't feel the same way? Yellow worriedly asked. Oh, don't worry, dear, Delia assured. I'm sure if you tell him about your feelings, he'll feel the same way. Man, am I stumped. Ash groaned as he and his Pokémon walked through the snow-covered streets. I just don't know what to give to everyone. Pika Pikapi Pika Pikachu, Pikachu said in support. You know them well, but I have a special suggestion for Yellow, Lucario added as Caesar looked at Firo. No way, was this bastard going to say it and influence the bet? What? You can give her, your love, Lucario said while holding his paws in a heart shape. Austin in response picked up a fistful of snow before turning it into a snowball and throwing it directly onto Lucario's face while Caesar and Firo sighed in relief. Every one of Austin's Pokémon had made a bet on who their human will end up with. With Caesar and Firo putting over 1,000 berries on Cynthia. Suddenly Austin's Pokédex beeped as he looked down to see a message from Cynthia. Happy Christmas, sorry I can't make it to Kanto. A snowstorm has cancelled all the flights going to Kanto. Austin frowned before thinking of a message to send back to Cynthia as she continued straining his brain for the message perfect. His eye caught something at a store window. This looks promising, he said as he inspected the item. Come to think of it, I've noticed Yellow and Misty having their eyes set on one of these recently. She's been wanting one pretty badly. What do you guys think? Pika Pikachu. Pikachu happily nodded. No, it must be your love. The Aura Pokémon exclaimed before he was pelted by snowballs from Caesar and Firo. Austin ignored those three and looked at Pikachu. Looked at a particular item. You want that for Choo-Choo? Austin asked with a nudge as the electric mouse shamelessly nodded. And so, Austin and Pikachu entered the store to purchase the gifts, leaving behind Caesar and Firo who were cursing the Aura Pokémon and pelting him with snowballs. The next night was Christmas Eve and the party in the Ketchum house is in full swing. A lot of guests from Bill to Gary had arrived to join the festivities. Yellow was surprised when not only Misty's sisters arrived at the party but also Brock's family. Many delicious foods were prepared by both Delia and Brock. Later, there was music outside and many couples were seen dancing together. Austin sat in his seat in deep thought when he noticed Yellow sitting alone in another chair by the yard door. He glanced back at the dance floor and came up with a decision. He got up from his seat and walked towards the blonde girl. Yellow was also in deep thought as she stared at the many people dancing. Gee, I sure wish Ash would dance with me, she thought. But what are the chances of that happening? Yellow. Yellow snapped out of her thoughts to see Austin standing in front of her. Oh. Hi Ash. She greeted with a blush. What's up? Well, I was wondering, if you would, like to dance with me? He asked nervously as he scratched his cheek and extended his arm. Yellow eyes widened as she heard the request. What? She asked in shock. I asked if you would like to dance with me, he said once more in a calm tone. Was this happening? Is Ash Ketchum asking her to dance with him? There was absolutely no way she was going to pass up a chance like this. Well, that is, if you want to. Austin continued. I'll understand if you don't. So I'll just... Oh Ash, I would love to dance with you. Yellow answered in glee as she took hold of Austin's hand. Really? Great. Austin smiled at Yellow's answer. Let's go. They made their way to the dance floor and joined the crowd. Austin kept hold of Yellow's hand while the other found its way to her back and Yellow used her other hand on Austin's shoulder. They danced to many different songs along with the crowd. Through every song they danced, they gazed into each other's eyes. Yellow's heart melted as she stared deep into the abyss of Austin's crimson eyes while Austin felt that he had made the worst decision possible. Yellow felt so comfortable and safe, dancing with the boy she loved so deeply, that she rested her head on his chest and let out a contempt sigh. Later, the party was over and we now find our heroes sitting together by the fireplace. That was a great Christmas party, Mrs. Ketchum, complimented Brock. The best. Yellow agreed in an adorable cheer. Without a doubt, it was a blast, added Misty. Pi Pikachu, said Pikachu. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Delia thanked. And would you look at the time? Delia said as she pointed at the clock. It's midnight. You know what that means. It's Christmas. Everyone cheered. Oh. And that reminds me. Austin said as he got up. What is it, Ash? Asked Brock. You'll see, Austin replied as he went up the stairs with Pikachu and Lucario in tow. A few minutes later, Ash and his Pokémon came back down with wrapped presents in their hands. Everyone in the room gasped at the sight. Surprise! Austin said as he showed the gifts. Ash. What are those? Yellow questioned in shock. Your Christmas gifts. What else would they be? He joked as he and his Pokémon placed the gifts on the floor. You got Christmas presents for all of us? Asked Misty. What did you think I left for Viridian City yesterday in the first place? Austin replied. But Ash. Stuttered Yellow. We didn't get any gifts for any of us, LL let alone you. That's all right. There isn't anything I want. Besides, I've got everything I need right here. Right now. Austin said as he spreads his arms open in front of the others. Spending time with family and friends. That's what Christmas means to me. I don't need anything like a new hat, a new badge case, or even a master ball to be happy. Being with you guys, my friends, no. My family, this is all I could ever ask for. Right, Pikachu? Pikachu. Pikachu agreed. So, I want to show you guys how much I appreciate you being my family by getting you these presents. So Merry Christmas everyone. Pika. Pika Pikachu. Pikachu cheered. Everyone in the room was so touched by Austin's kind and heartwarming words that they were tearing up. Especially Delia and Yellow. Delia was proud of how mature her son now was. First off, Mom, Austin said as he handed them the gifts. The mother unwrapped their presents to reveal what they received. Delia got a pink bottle of perfume called Essence of Spritzy. Mom, I know how you much like perfume, this would be the perfect gift for you, Austin explained as he projected that he was giving this gift to his real mother and not a woman from an anime. More tears of joy fell from Delia's eyes at what her son gave her. She was so overjoyed, she lunged at Austin and gave him the best hug and kiss a mother would give to her child. Oh, Ash. You truly are the best son a mother could have. She gushed. Ugh. Mom, I don't mean to be rude, but if you don't let go, you're either gonna snap my spine or squeeze the air right out of my lungs, whichever comes first. Austin groaned in pain. Oops. Delia yelped as she released Ash from her arms. Wow. A new breeder's item box. Brock exclaimed happily. I've been needing a new one for some time. Yeah, I hope you liked it, Brock, said Austin as he turned to Misty. Let me guess, you got me a water stone. Well, if you don't want it then. Lucario pitched in as Misty quickly grabbed the present from Austin's hand. No, I am thankful that at least you got me a gift. Misty tore the wrapping and let out a loud high-pitched shriek. Eee! Tickets to the water cup. Misty felt tears in her eyes as she looked at the tickets for the one tournament that she always wanted to go to. I know how you always talked about this tournament so. Oh, Ash. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Misty exclaimed in glee as she hugged Ash tightly and showered him with multiple big kisses on the cheek causing Misty, Yellow, and the others to freeze. Ahem, Ash I. Misty's face turned red as she ran out of the room embarrassed while Pikachu and Lucario looked at each other. Did this mean that Wardortle won the bet? Austin blinked a few times as he intently said, why did Misty run out of the room? Was she that happy about the tickets? Austin's intently oblivious words caused Lucario and Pikachu to face palm. "And here's yours, Yellow," Austin said as he handed her the present to her trembling hands. "Thank you, Ash." She stuttered as her face became as red as a tomato. At the same time, Pikachu went up to Choo-Choo and handed her present to her trembling paws. Both trainer and Pokémon anxiously unwrapped their presents to reveal a rectangular black box. "Go ahead, open it," said Ash. Yellow opened the box and gasped. It was a beautiful silver chain necklace with a heart-shaped ruby. The ruby glimmered and shined from the light of the fireplace as Yellow held it with one hand while the other, over her pounding heart. Choo-Choo had the same expression as she received a heart-shaped pendant that was small enough to fit her. "Oh, my gosh!" Yellow breathed. "Ah! Isn't that sweet of my Ash?" Delia beamed. "You got that for Yellow?" Brock questioned Austin. "Sure did," Austin said with pride before asking Yellow. "If I may." Though still beside herself, Yellow nodded. Taking the necklace, Austin went around Yellow, placed it around her neck, and closed the clasp. "So Yellow, wha'd ya think? Do you like it?" he asked as he came back around. Yellow didn't answer as she was heavily panting from the shock of her gift. Yellow, are you okay?" Austin asked in concern. Yellow couldn't control her emotions anymore. She tackled Austin in a tight hug with so much force, he was knocked to the sofa. Tears of happiness flooded her eyes and fell as she hugged him. Ash was indeed the boy of her dreams. "I'll take that as a yes," he said with a chuckle before returning the hug. Choo-Choo mimicked her trainer as she tackled him. "Damn it, that bastard blew his best chance," Lucario whispered to himself. "Want some chocolate eggnog?" Brock offered to cause Lucario's ear-like projections to stand up. "Don't mind if I do," Lucario exclaimed as he took a big gulp before looking at Brock. "If only you were a woman," Lucario said, causing Brock to be confused while Austin's Dragonair's Pokeball shook with the anger of an enraged draconic woman. Caesar and Firo looked at each other. "Should we place our bets on Yellow?" the duo thought as Pidgeot slapped Firo's crown, causing the flying type to look at Pidgeot in anger as she held a berry in her beak for him. Firo slapped Caesar's claw and said, "Ha, look at her." Caesar in response slammed a metal claw into Firo's neck, knocking the flying type out as he held the flying type to Pidgeot. "Take care of him, while I suffer for the ultimate disease, loneliness," Caesar exclaimed as he slowly picked up his diary and began to write it down. Pidgeot looked at Firo's knocked-out body and then at Caesar, who was scribbling away in his diary. "Yeah, I am going to go," Pidgeot thought as she slowly hopped back, leaving the duo to themselves. Truly, this was a Christmas no one will ever forget. Up high into the sky, a red sleigh carrying a large sack of gifts was driven by a round man with a full snowy white beard and in a red outfit while being pulled by 7 Stantler. The lead Stantler guided the way with his glowing red orbs in his antlers. As they sped off into the night sky, the man calls out to the good people of the Kanto region and the rest of the Pokémon world. "Merry Christmas to all. And to all, a good night." Chapter number 258, Aura Awakening Part 2. The Chosen One has awakened. It was a simple statement, but it held all the importance of the world in its words. "Lucario, you know what you must do. The Chosen One must be in control of his aura lest the world burns to ash." "I understand, Master." Lucario stated seriously. "I shall dispatch a message to the kingdom in Rhoda and the hidden aura temple in Sinnoh. A companion must be selected for the Chosen One at once. His aura needs to be bonded with another's to be in harmony with the world." "I agree with you, Lucario," Riley replied in a deadly serious tone. Lucario nodded and, turning on his heels, ran as fast as he could in the direction of the hidden temple. "Make haste, my friend." At that exact moment, in various locations around the world, a phenomenon was occurring. Kanto, Saffron City. The gym leader of Saffron City, Sabrina, suddenly gripped her head and screamed out in pain at the top of her lungs in front of her father and students. Since she never showed emotion to anyone, it was a scary sight for everyone present. Her eyes glowed with psychic power before suddenly glowing red, and she spoke in a trance-like voice, "My chosen now walks among you. Such is the will of the world, such is the will of the First One." Sabrina felt the presence of a boy in her mind, but she then collapsed. She wouldn't awaken for a further 7 days. The other psychics had felt the resonance but were not strong enough to channel that much power. So in a room located in the back of Saffron Gym, Sabrina and her psychic Pokémon remained while her father despaired. In Johto, the people in Ecruteak City were enjoying a peaceful morning when all of a sudden the old burned-down bell tower or tin tower glowed and the ancient bell that no longer worked suddenly rang out loudly to the world. Morty, the city's gym leader and member of one of the two original families to communicated with Ho-Oh, ran out of his gym as he felt the disturbance shortly before the first ring of the bell. He spied movement and saw the Kimono sisters, members of the other family, staring in horror and sheer terror. A chill went down his spine. Something has happened. The world felt different all of a sudden. In Sinnoh, in a little town located at the base of Mount Coronet called Celestic Town, Cynthia Shirana, who had recently returned home to visit her grandmother and took a break from training, screamed out in terror as the ruins she had visited to feel at peace suddenly shook and the ancient scripts on the stone walls glowed an angry red color. She cried out for help and someone ran up behind her, but she didn't know who, as she was suddenly mesmerized by a feeling that coursed through her body. She felt like she was being watched by an entity, not from Sinnoh, and turned to face the feeling before it suddenly vanished, and for a strange split-second moment, she thought she saw red eyes staring right back at her. In another location in Sinnoh, the hidden Aura Temple to be precise, the statues suddenly glowed red and the world's chime echoed an eerie tune constantly through the hallowed walls of the temple. In desperation to soothe the world's aura, every Pokémon there pulsed their aura to heal the erratic nature of it. Austin felt like he was floating. He saw his aura swirling around him, he felt his hair blowing in all directions, and he felt his eyes burn with sheer power 1 second, and then he felt like a passenger the next. He felt himself, or at least his aura, stretch over the continents that made up the Pokémon world. In Kanto, Saffron City if he wasn't mistaken, he saw a beautiful lavender-haired young lady, older than him but still young, resonate with both his aura and that of the consciousness aura. What she was saying he couldn't make out, but it scared the others there with her. In Johto, he didn't recognize where, though he heard a majestic bell ring soundly and felt the warm feeling of being near a campfire for some reason, and he heard the massive flap of wings heading at great speeds in his body's direction. North of Kanto, in a grand-looking kingdom, Rhoda, his mind supplied, he saw a giant tree light up with his and the entity's aura, and he felt another presence brush past his own. In Sinnoh, he found himself stretched even further and split into two locations. One location looked like a temple of sorts. It was full of carved statues that lined the walls, and it was filled with a bright aura. The aura radiated off of it in soothing waves like it was trying to calm him or the entity down. In the other location, he found himself in an ancient ruin located in a town that sat at the foot of a great mountain, though again he didn't know where he was. He caught a glimpse of a terrified Cynthia. She looked like she was looking at the shaking temple itself before screaming for someone else. He caught a glimpse of an older woman that bared a resemblance to Cynthia running in and gasping before he felt himself leaving. His final vision was of Cynthia turning to face his direction. Austin felt himself return to his body, and shortly after, he felt the presence of the entity's gaze. Swiftly turning around, he came face to face with a set of eyes, red like blood, and while they were just eyes, they held an unfathomable amount of power. The entity's eyes narrowed and he heard an echoed voice speak directly to him. "You are now responsible." It spoke powerfully. Responsible for what? Austin thought in confusion. "I don't understand." The entity's gaze sharpened, and with a glow of them. "You are my chosen," it spoke once more, though it was fading now. "Do not fail me, Ash Ketchum." "Wait, you're Arceus, right? You know who I am and where I came from. This is not my world. This is not my body. This is not me. Send me back." Austin screamed out to the entity, which seemed to ignore Austin's words as Austin felt like he was floating once more before he felt the entity's consciousness leave. "No. No. No, 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 nah, please at least tell me why I am here. Arceus. Arceus. I can't remember my face, my real face. Arceus, tell me, why I am here. Answer me, you damn fucking bastard. Answer me, please, answer me." The desperate cry of a boy lost in another world echoed throughout the mindscape that was filled with an ethereal light. Austin opened his eyes and shook his head to clear his mind. He fell to his knees and vomited up whatever food was in it. His throat burned, it felt like he'd swallowed acid, and he swore he saw blood in his vomit. "How do you feel?" Lucario called out as he was on one knee with Yellow healing him. She had an extremely worried look in her eyes. Ash, are you all right?" "I am all right, Yellow." "But you are crying," Yellow said as her lips quivered. She could sense sadness from her friend. "Why was he sad?" "Am I?" Austin said as he touched his eyes. Looking at his fingers wet with tears, Austin sighed, but his eyes caught something on his wrists. There were intricate patterns on it. "What?" Austin said, but a thud from above caused him to look up, where he saw Lucario looking at Yellow incredulously. Yellow meanwhile was on the floor with blood trickling down her nose. Is she all right? Yeah, Lucario said with an unsure tone of voice. Lucario. What is it? Where is the pond? It evaporated. You should also wear some clothes. I beg your pardon. Make paragraph. Of the extant Pokémon native to the poles, only Seel is not considered to be of the ice type. In eras when currents, volcanism, and the planet's orbit made temperatures at the poles less extreme, others like the water-type Piplup were found there. They have since faced extinction, at least in the wild, and Seel is the lone holdout. The secret of its typing lies in its thick, extremely warm coat of fur, which forces it to maintain a body temperature warmer than even its ice-type evolution of Dugong, too warm to be ice. Indeed, it is said that their fur is so warm that they seek out the coldest parts of the Arctic to cool off, for it is not already cold enough in the rest of the ocean. Sadly, this fur has also led to Seel's decline. Indigenous Arctic peoples have always hunted the seal for their fur coats, and indeed some say it was their fur that allowed humans to expand to the far reaches of the north, to begin with. As empires from the south subjugated the northern lands, people heard tales of fur which could keep them comfortable through the winter, and to this aim, they hunted seal to the edge of extinction. Thankfully, the seal are nothing if not resilient. The ships which brought their pelts to Japan also saw some live seal stowed away. Today they live in the frozen caves spread throughout the country. Others sharpened their horns into drills that can not only pierce sea ice but kill a grown man in a single shot. And with the rise of indoor heating, seal coats are no longer the commodity they once were. With any luck, this Pokémon will make a comeback. Chapter number 259 Prophecy. Splash. The sounds of the shower cascaded in the white-tiled bathroom as Austin stood under the steamy spray of the shower, letting the hot water wash over his body. He closed his eyes and tilted his head back, savoring the feeling of the water cascading down his skin. He stretches his arms above his head and takes a deep breath, enjoying the soothing warmth of the water. After everything that had happened with his aura awakening, he needs some time to rest. The ritual seemed to have affected Lucario as the aura Pokémon had passed out on the trip back. Every one of his and Yellow's Pokémon was watching some kind of movie in the room while Yellow was sound asleep. Austin stood under the warm spray of the shower, the water cascading over his toned and tattooed body. He takes a moment to appreciate the intricate designs that cover his skin. Starting at his chest, a series of bold, black tribal lines stretch across his pecs and down his abs, swirling and intertwining in a mesmerizing pattern. The tattoo extends down his arms as well, the lines wrapping around his biceps and forearms in a flowing, graceful design. Austin's long, dark hair slicked back by the water, revealed more ritualistic and tribal tattoos on the back of his neck and shoulders. A large, ornate tribal design takes up most of his upper back, the lines and shapes blending in a way that almost appears three-dimensional. Imagine this. Austin couldn't help but smile. He had always wished to get a tattoo back on Earth, but his entire family was always opposed to his wish, yet now look at him. He had an entire body covered in the coolest tattoos he had ever seen. A shame this is not my body, Austin thought as he brushed his long hair to the side. The ritual had changed a lot of his physical appearance. His hair after any shonen anime power-up had gotten long, while the spikes that usually formed in his hairstyle were reduced, and then there were his eyes, which had changed from a chocolate brown to a permanent red color. Austin noted the changes to the body before he closed his eyes. He needed to talk with Lucario after he woke up. Mount Silver, peak. Winter. It was the only season Mount Silver knew. From the frost-bitten taiga at the foot to the labyrinthian cave networks within to the blizzard-plagued peaks, Mount Silver was by far one of the most dangerous places in the known world. Beyond the deathly climate and murderous terrain, Mount Silver was home to the fiercest and most savage Pokémon on the planet. For all of the above reasons, the legendary mountain had been deemed an off-limits zone to all but a select few. The current criteria for entry were set at 16 gym badges, recognized by the Kanto Johto, or Indigo League, but even then, it wasn't uncommon for accepted trainers to enter Mount Silver and never return. But those who did sang one of only two songs. They turned back before the mountain could defeat them, or they were defeated by the mythical trainer at the summit. Of course, despite most trainers braving Mount Silver to try their hand at defeating the mythical trainer, the man's existence was questionable, to begin with. There was far less shame in admitting defeat to a legend of a trainer than to admit acquiescence against the mountain itself. Plus, there was the simple logistical question of how one man could survive atop a mountain devoid of vegetation for so long all by himself. Nevertheless, the legend of the mythical trainer persisted just strong enough that every year, an inevitable handful of ace trainers would attempt the gauntlet for an attempt at global glory. The legend of the mythical trainer of Mount Silver first sprouted a mere 10 years before the present day, at around the time the champion of Kanto, Red abdicated his position of Kanto champion the very same day he attained it. The situation was unprecedented in Kanto's history, and indeed, in any other regions as well, but the headline that had circulated across the world was not of the abandoned throne, but of a young Pokémon master who'd taken residence at the peak of Mount Silver. On top of Mount Silver, Red opened his eyes. He had analyzed the song of the world through his aura sense and he couldn't help but snarl. His worst nightmare had come true. His son had taken the position of the chosen one of the legends of old. Fuchsia City, Pokémon Center. Finally, awake Sleeping Beauty, Austin asked as he looked up from the Pokénet. I thought I was hallucinating for a second but you've changed. Well, I have your ritual to thank for that, Austin answered as Lucario got up from the bed with a grunt. Still tired? Well, the ritual did take a lot out of me. We can talk later if that is the case. No, I am fine. I can see that you have a lot of questions after what happened. Lucario answered as he tried to get up. Well, who wouldn't have questions after all of that? True, so ask away my long-haired friend. Thanks for noticing. Well, first of all, how did all of this happen? I don't know. You can't be serious. I did tell you that this is a modified version of another ritual. How should I know what its effects are? Sigh, moving on, Lucario, do you know anything about the Chosen One? Lucario's head suddenly shot up as he looked at Austin. Don't tell me. Austin just nodded in response. Lucario put his paw over his eyes as he took a deep breath. You know, I thought that the ritual caused me to hallucinate but to think you were the Chosen One. Oh Mew, what have I gotten myself into? Is it that bad? Yes, yes it is. Being the Chosen One means that your life is now connected to the protection of the world and the gods that reside within. So, am I like some kind of entity who has to keep the legendaries in check? Austin asked, causing Lucario to shrug. I don't know. The only thing I know about the Chosen One is just a prophecy. Prophecy. Disturb not the harmony of fire, ice, or lightning, lest these titans wreak destruction upon the world in which they clash. Though the water's great guardian shall arise to quell the fighting, alone its song will fail, lest the earth shall turn to ash. O Chosen One, into thine hands, bring together all three. Their treasures combined tame the beast of the sea. Lucario said, causing Austin to nod. You don't look that surprised, Lucario asked. I figured out my life would be connected to the legendary Pokémon after my various encounters with them. You have encountered the gods of Pokémon. Lucario cried out in surprise. Yet. Lucario was left speechless as he looked at Austin, who had a calm look on his face, but his posture told Lucario that he was scared. Lucario put his paw on Austin's shoulder, causing him to look at the aura Pokémon. Don't worry, you are not alone in this. I, your maiden, and all your Pokémon are here for you. You don't have to take on the burden all by yourself. Austin's eyes teared up a little as he whispered back. Thank you. Oh, make paragraph. In the frozen reaches of the Arctic Ocean, where ships dare not venture for fear of icebergs, dugong is used as mounts. It is from the backs of dugong that fishermen seek valuable shelter and baby lapras. It is teams of dugong that pulled the sleds of the Arctic explorers who sought the North Pole. In traditional Arctic warfare, they were even used as cavalry in place of Rapidash. Despite this vast utility, dugong was never a very common Pokémon. Even before the seal fur boom, dugong fell frequently in battle and typically required years of harsh training to be replaced. Few seal ever became dugong. Their rarity was exacerbated by the lack of effective Pokémon centers in the Arctic. With the decline in seal populations due to overhunting, wars broke out over seal breeding grounds, often killing and losing more dugong in battle than they would eventually gain, even when they fought other natives, and not soldiers from well-armed empires. Today, as a result of the species' endangerment, access to Arctic seal is tightly constrained by law. Each tribe is assigned a set quota of seal which does not come close to allowing every trainer to have their own, and frequently they are not, as legally required, distributed by drawing lots, but monopolized by the chiefs and their friends and family. This has troubling implications for Arctic society, and it is feared it will lead to the formation of a hereditary aristocracy. Then as now, those with dugong are on top, but now only a few can train seal to begin with. Chapter number 260, Battle Chateau at Fuchsia City Part 1. Austin's POV. So, why do I have to sit in this position? I asked while I sat in a lotus position with my new master, Lucario, sitting behind me with a dessert cookbook in one of his paws while he placed his other hand on my back. Try it in another position and see what happens. Okay, noted. This position good and other positions bad. Yes. So, what am I doing exactly? I am going to inject aura into your body and you have to remember how aura feels to you and its flow throughout your body. Got it, but I have a question to ask. You may ask. Aura Guardian uses aura to mimic Pokémon moves. Yes. Then shouldn't you teach me something like mirror move or substitute to speed up my training? That is a great idea. For someone as dense as yourself, you surprisingly come up with extremely good ideas. I don't know if I should be happy or insulted. Go for the happiness, you are normally insulted daily. Gee, thanks. Okay, enough excuses. Let's begin sensing your aura. Yes, Sensei. Lucario's paws lit up in a bluish aura as he injected it into Austin's body. Try to remember the feel of aura and its flow and nothing else. The next day. The Battle Chateau in Fuchsia City looked just as majestic as the first one in Cerulean City. The group couldn't help but still be in awe at the sight of the building. I see that the rich haven't changed even in the future, Lucario stated, causing Austin, who was using Caesar's shoulder to support himself. Sensing aura, or rather failing to sense aura, had left him mentally and physically tired. Capitalism at its finest, Austin answered back as he breathed heavily, causing Caesar and Yellow to look at him anxiously. Ash, we can go back if you're not feeling well, Yellow asked while Piku vigorously nodded from Yellow's pocket. Don't worry, I am just a little tired. Austin answered back. Do you want me to heal you? Nah, I can manage. You just focus on your match. Ash, do you think I can win? Yellow, how many battles did we have after Rhoda? I lost count. Damn it, I thought at least one of us would have kept track of it. Sorry, Yellow said as she looked down, causing Piku, who was sitting on her straw hat, to fall off. Pie. Oh, no, Piku. Is she all right? Yeah. So as I was saying, you have a lot of experience from battles against me and normal training on top of that. It's not you that I am worried about, it's the competition. Thank you, Yellow said with a blushing smile. Welcome to the Battle Chateau, beaux and dames. Hennessy greeted them once the group was inside. Hennessy? You come here also? Yellow asked in surprise. I beg your pardon, madam, but have we met? Hennessy politely asked. Yes. You were the head butler at the Cerulean City Battle Chateau, Yellow told him. Hennessy gave a light chuckle. Ha ha ha. That is my first cousin. We are often mistaken for the same. All of the head butlers at the Battle Chateau are named Hennessy, and we all look alike. Austin's sweat dropped. It was the same way with Hennessy as it was with Nurse Joyce and Officer Jenny's. In any case, which of you will be taking part in our tournament today? Hennessy asked the group. I will, Yellow answered. Hennessy nodded. Very well. Please follow me as I lead you to the other rooms to change your clothes, he said as he began to walk down the huge hallway. Wow, this place is so big, Caesar said in wonder as he looked at the beautiful room. I know. It's like we are in a real castle. Pikachu said. Meh, I have seen bigger, Lucario answered the duo, causing Austin to look at him strangely. Hennessy stopped walking once they across two maids who bowed to them. Please lead this dame to her changing rooms. She wishes to participate in today's tournament, Hennessy told them politely while gesturing to Yellow. Of course, the maids replied before walking off down another corridor, Yellow following suit. Why don't you participate in this? Lucario asked curiously. I don't know. I guess I wanted to a traditional Pokémon journey, but after everything, I think maybe I should also do it. Austin said, while he didn't want to change much in the timeline at first since he believed that this world had many elements from the Pokémon manga and games but leaned heavily towards the anime, but after getting the Pokénet, all the news articles he had read and experienced all the bullshit that he had gone through, Austin could say one thing for certain. The usual bullshit that happens to Ash in the anime? Like how every week or so a small town is in danger because of some stupid Pokémon-related issue. Or how a giant tentacruel just attacks the city out of nowhere, or an ancient fossil Pokémon breaks free and decides to go on a rampage. Turns out, that bullshit does not happen because Ash is the anime protagonist. That bullshit happens everywhere around the world. Austin was snapped out of his thoughts when Yellow arrived back from the changing room. Yellow was dressed in the same pink outfit as the first time she was at the Battle Chateau. If I may, it is time to start the tournament. Do I need to go over the rules with anyone? Hennessy asked. Yellow shook her head no. In that case, may the young madam come with me? Your friends may watch from the side, of course, Hennessy said as he motioned for them to follow him. And young man, please refrain from smoking in this place, Hennessy said as he looked at Austin while pointing at the cigarette pack that was sticking out of his pocket. Don't worry, this is just a memorial for the death of someone who influenced my life for the better or worse, Austin said as he took out the cigarette pack which had a date carved out into it along with the words. Never forget and never forgive. Hennessy nodded before bowing. My apologies for jumping to conclusions. Oh, don't worry, you are just following the rules. This is Fuchsia City after all. And I would jump when I leave this damn city and get myself a pack. Austin opted to not say it as he just smiled. Yellow stepped over to the end of the battle hall while the rest of the group went to the edge to watch. Her opponent soon came out of the room as well. It was another girl who had blonde hair in pigtails. She also seemed to carry a somewhat haughty expression. May the two dames please curtsy to one another before choosing their Pokémon, the judge said. Yellow smiled and did a curtsy before the girl who gave a small one in exchange. You may now choose your Pokémon. The judge announced. Make paragraph. The usage of Grimer to poison water supplies is an old standby of biological warfare. As a highly toxic Pokémon whose liquid body can easily mix with water, a small group swimming around a reservoir or river can force a choice between death from poison or thirst. Because of this danger, sources of water have been well protected even since antiquity, and deaths by Grimer poison in the old days did not occur in proportion to the fear that these Pokémon caused. And then came the Industrial Revolution. With the growth of cities and factories came massive pollution, and the city of Celadon soon discovered Grimer in their ponds and rivers in peacetime. At first, suspicion fell upon the reservoir guards and they were executed, for the people of the city were dying in droves. The government went into deep debt to import clean water from afar, for the city's vast population made it difficult to meet its drinking needs. The new guards could do nothing to stem the flow of Grimer, and it soon became clear that the executed guards had been innocent. Inspections revealed no pathways between the water supply and the sewage system which normally held these poison Pokémon. Weeks later it was found that industrial waste from the factories had been leaking into the reservoir and that this waste was combining with air pollution to form live Grimer right there in the water. A massive cleanup effort was begun, but soon abandoned, for the people of Celadon were unwilling to make the sacrifices to avoid pollution, finding it cheaper to simply import water from abroad and raise taxes accordingly. Today, Celadon is still one of very few places in Kanto, and the only city, where wild Grimer can be found on the surface. Chapter number 261 Battle Chateau of Fuchsia City Part 2. May the two dames please curtsy to one another before choosing their Pokémon, the judge said. Here she was. Yellow was about to participate in her first Battle Chateau tournament round since Cerulean City. Even though she knew she had to relax and keep a cool head, she couldn't help but be nervous. Even if she did manage to win up to the final round, there was still the possibility someone more powerful would be there as well, and she appeared to be good. What if she lost? What if she lost the first round again? Would Ash abandon her because she was weak? Would he leave her behind because she was a burden to his mission? She couldn't let that happen. You may now choose your Pokémon. The judge announced. Kitty. I choose you. Yellow cried as she sent out the Alpha Beedrill, effectively scaring her opponent and the audience. Austin meanwhile scratched his chin. What was Yellow's game plan? Why did she send out her strongest Pokémon in the first round? Gulp, I shall choose Meowth. The other girl responded as she sent out her Pokémon. In the audience, Lucario immediately put his paws on Austin's shoulders while Pikachu jumped to the side. Pikachu's instincts had naturally kicked in as Austin's aura spiked up when he saw Meowth. Austin's aura tattoos glowed a little before he calmed down. This Meowth was unlike Team Rocket's Meowth, it looked like a typical Meowth. It was female, stood on 4 legs instead of 2, and lacked human speech. Calm down. Lucario calmly exclaimed as he tried to suppress Austin's sudden burst of aura. This is an official Battle Chateau challenge between Yellow and Elsa. There will be no time limit. Begin. The judge shouted as he slowly crept towards Elsa's side. He wasn't a big fan of bug-type Pokémon, especially Beedrill. Aerial X. Yellow ordered. Kitty suddenly disappeared with the speed of an aerial ace, reappearing above Meowth with her stingers glowing with a greenish aura as Meowth took on the X-Scissor head-on. Due to the special way the room was built for battles, it kept its trainers and any spectators from feeling the vibrations. Meowth was struggling to stay on its feet, which Yellow used to her advantage. Poison Sting! Yellow called out. Kitty shot out a barrage of glowing needles which struck Meowth dead on. We aren't done yet. Meowth! Use Screech! Elsa ordered. The Meowth then let out an ear-piercing screech, causing everyone else but Austin and Lucario in the room to cover their ears. Kitty received the brunt of the attack and its defense was harshly lowered. Use Quick Attack, Meowth! Elsa ordered as her Meowth dashed forward at great speed and slammed into Kitty. Harden Cutter! Yellow ordered as Kitty jerked back up midair as her entire body flashed metallic for a second before her stinger rained down on Meowth. Use Quick Attack to dodge, Meowth! Elsa called out. Meowth crashed into the ground as her body showed a lot of damage from Kitty's Harden and Fury Cutter combo. Use Thunderbolt, Meowth! The girl cried. The Meowth was unable to, as the Fury Cutter had done a lot of damage as the feline was knocked backward onto the ground in defeat. We have a winner. Meowth is unable to battle, which makes Yellow and Beedrill the winners of the first round. The judge announced while waving his flag in Yellow's direction. Pika! Yellow looked up to see Pikachu and Lucario cheering on, but her eyes were only fixed on one person. Austin just smiled and gave her a nod. It had been a really tough time, but Yellow had managed to win the next 2 rounds. Yellow had used Atenti and Dottie to battle in the next rounds. Yellow felt a bit better after winning the next 2 rounds the right way, as she didn't want to overpower her opponent. It wasn't like she was fighting for her life. Austin and the others were currently out in the lobby. They were given 5 minutes of rest to prepare. Now the final round of the Battle Chateau challenge was about to begin, and Yellow's last opponent was someone that took Austin by surprise. A young green-haired boy from the Hone region who would become a rival to May in the anime, Drew. Austin wondered if Drew had left the Poke Tech school after he defeated him or after he had graduated from that sorry excuse of an institute. Yellow and Drew were now standing at each end of the battle hall ready to face each other. Yellow looked at Drew with extreme determination, even though she had seen Austin humiliate this trainer, but after all the battles she had with Austin, she had one thing engraved into her mind by Austin. Never underestimate your opponent. Yellow had her focus completely on the battle in front of her. She felt more than ready right now and was determined to receive the rank of Viscountess. Austin meanwhile was wondering who Yellow would choose in this battle. It couldn't be Kitty, Dottie, or Tenti, since she had given them all a chance to battle. Innie, Dratini, wasn't very fond of battles, to that left only one. Choo-choo, Piku. This is an official match of the Battle Chateau tournament. Whoever wins this round shall receive their plaque and move up to the next rank. The trainers may now curtsy to one another and choose their Pokémon. The judge announced. Yellow and Drew did as told and gave polite curtsies to one another, but Austin could see an arrogant smirk lining Drew's face. Amateur, Austin thought while narrowing his eyes. It was then time to choose their Pokémon. Come on out, Choo-choo. Yellow called once she threw the Pokeball. You should have used your Beedrill inside. What can a little rat do against me? Let me show you what a real strong Pokémon looks like. Drew called out meanwhile, while Yellow and Choo-choo glared at the obnoxiously arrogant trainer. Ivysaur, I choose you. Drew then threw the Pokeball. Everyone watched as a Pokémon that looked similar to Bulbasaur appeared. It was a little larger than one and was a darker shade of blue. Instead of a bulb on its back, it had bloomed into a bud. How much time do you think it would take? 10 minutes, Austin answered back. Oh, quite the trust you have in your maiden. Well, I believe it would take 7 minutes. Lucario answered back. What's the bet? Austin said while glancing at the smirking Lucario. Why don't we go big or go home? I am listening. Hearing everything that the duo was saying, Pikachu couldn't help but sweat drop. These two were insane. Oh, make paragraph. There are many Pokémon known for giving affection to their trainers and other Pokémon. Jumpfluff is known for its use of sweet scent and attraction, while Gardevoir needs no attacks to attract more affection than they often can handle. And yet of all the Pokémon in the world, the most affectionate of them all is not made of fluff or skin, but of sludge, for the most affectionate Pokémon is Mook. It is to their utmost discontent that a Mook trying to get a hug is like a Jigglypuff fancying itself a pop music idol. Their bodies are greasy to the touch, prone to sucking in hands, and prolonged exposure can result in illness, and perhaps worse, if a Mook will endure this, they still have no arms with which to hug their trainer's back. It is far more common for them to use frustration than return in combat. This is also a source of sorrow for trainers, for if a trainer endures their Mook's affections or even enjoys them, they will find themselves in possession of an extraordinarily powerful Pokémon. Most Mook is fairly unremarkable in battle, but this is because their true potential lies unutilized. Mook, like magical girls and Bird Ramon, is fueled by the power of love. Chapter number 262 Battle Chateau of Fuchsia City Part 3. Austin and the others watched as a Pokémon that looked similar to Bulbasaur appeared. It was a little larger than one and was a darker shade of blue. Instead of a bulb on its back, it had bloomed into a bud. An Ivysaur. Yellow muttered as she pulled out her Pokédex. Ivysaur, the seed Pokémon and the evolved form of Bulbasaur. Exposure to sunlight adds to its strength and makes the bud on its back grow larger, the Pokédex spoke. Yellow hoped that Choo Choo could stand up to the challenge. Ha, you think you can defeat me with that? Drew taunted Yellow but didn't get much from Yellow. She acts just like you, Lucario commented. Elaborate. Now, you can't be that dense. That maiden of yours mimics your battling style to an almost scary degree. She isn't my maiden, Austin replied while his eyes never left the battlefield. Could have fooled me. At your age, I am sure there are a lot of things that could fool you. This match will have no time limit. Begin. The judge shouted. Thundershock. Yellow shouted. Piku rubbed her cheeks, as it released a wave of electricity that hit Ivysaur dead on, causing it to yell. Shake it off, Ivysaur, and use Vine Whip. Drew called. Ivysaur then shot out its vines and flung them at Choo Choo. Choo Choo panicked and tried to run out of the way, but the vines followed it and grabbed it. Choo Choo was then lifted off of the ground and into the air. Piku. Now that you have control of it, you know what to do, Ivysaur. Drew told it. Ivysaur then began to slam Choo Choo onto the ground with its vines, but due to her small size, Choo Choo was able to escape. Thunder Punch. Yellow called to Choo Choo. Piku then shot towards Ivysaur with her small paws glowing with electricity, but Ivysaur was ready this time and jumped out of the way despite the speed of the mouse Pokémon. It then continued to slam Choo Choo into the ground with a Vine Whip. This isn't good if Ivysaur's quick enough to get out of the way, Yellow thought. She then noticed how the vines were attached to Ivysaur and had an idea. Thunderbolt on the vines. Yellow called. Oh no! Ivysaur, throw Piku away from you! Drew cried. Ivysaur swung its vines around and threw Choo Choo through the air, but not before Choo Choo was able to light Ivysaur's vines on fire with Thunderbolt. The fire traveled along the vines until they got to Ivysaur where it began to get burned. Choo Choo was able to land on its feet despite the powerful throw. It was still showing signs of fatigue, however. Meanwhile, Ivysaur had withdrawn its vines back into themselves to stop the fire. Use Sweet Scent, Ivysaur, Drew called. Ivysaur then released an aroma from its bud that drifted toward Choo Choo. Choo Choo breathed in the smell and got a relaxed look on her face. It felt so peaceful. Try to snap out of it. Yellow yelled as was going to use her powers on Choo Choo but stopped herself. It wasn't fair. What good would that win be if she took a short way out? Choo Choo didn't seem to hear Yellow as it continued to have a peaceful smile on its face. Use Leech Seed now that Piku's distracted. Drew called. Ivysaur then launched a seed from its bud straight at Choo Choo. Choo Choo wasn't paying it any attention though because of the sweet scent. The seed landed on Choo Choo as vines began to cover it. This broke Choo Choo out of its trance, and it began to struggle. Pie-eighth. It cried in pain as its energy began to get sapped from it. Looks like someone got better, Austin commented from the side with Pikachu nodding in agreement. Meanwhile Lucario didn't even bother asking as he looked down. Ditto was slowly peeking from the edge hoping that no one would see him. Let's win this with takedown, Ivysaur. Leaf called. Ivysaur began to charge forward straight at Choo Choo. The mouse Pokémon wasn't able to move very well because it was trapped within the leech seed. It wouldn't be able to get out of the way in time. Yellow looked on with worry as she knew Choo Choo was in big trouble if it was hit with another attack. There had to be something she could do. Use Shockwave. She called. Choo Choo cheek pouches glowed before she released a large amount of electricity in an omnidirectional wave. The power of attack also incinerated the vines from Leech Seed and sailed toward Ivysaur. The seed Pokémon had just been about to crash into Choo Choo when Yellow had ordered the attack, so it received the shockwave at point-blank range. Ivysaur yelled in pain as it was scorched by the heat of the electricity. The mouse Pokémon jumped away from Ivysaur and began to pant heavily. Yellow had hoped that was enough to take Ivysaur down. What she wasn't counting on was for Ivysaur's special ability, Overgrow, to take effect, too. Ivysaur's eyes seemed to get a certain fire in them as its plants seemed to grow larger. Yellow became worried as she knew, Ivysaur's grass-type moves just got a lot more powerful. Things just got a lot worse than they already were. Alright. Now that your special ability has activated also, use Razor Leaf. Drew called. Shockwave. Yellow yelled. The seed Pokémon then began to shoot a humongous stream of sharp leaves at Choo-Choo, who reciprocated by unleashing a high-voltage release of electricity. I don't think this is getting us anywhere. They are evenly matched. I better have Choo-Choo land a direct hit while I can. Yellow thought. She then called out, Thunderbolt. Drew must have been thinking along the same lines as she ordered her Ivysaur to use its strongest attack so far, Petal Dance. A flurry of large, glowing leaves shot from the plant on Ivysaur while Choo-Choo shot a thunderbolt. The attacks soared through the air and connected midway, creating a large explosion. The force of the blast threw each Pokémon backward as the smoke engulfed them. Pretty soon, the smoke covered the whole center of the battle hall where the Pokémon were. Everyone in the room waited intently for the smoke to clear, especially Drew and Yellow. They knew that their Pokémon were at the end of their ropes and wondered if they had made it through the explosion. After what seemed like an eternity, but about 30 seconds, the smoke had cleared. Both Ivysaur and Choo-Choo were standing and glaring hard at each other. Each trainer sighed that they had to battle even longer. Then, without warning, Drew's Ivysaur collapsed to the ground in defeat. Everyone stared in shock for a moment. Ivysaur is unable to battle. The winner is Piku, and the one who will be ascending in rank today shall be Yellow for winning the tournament. The judge called. Yellow stood in shock for a moment. She had done it. She had just won her first Battle Chateau tournament. Maybe she was capable of being a trainer, after all. Way to go, Choo-Choo! Yellow cried as she sprinted towards her Pokémon. She then knelt. You were great! She praised. Choo-Choo gave a tired smile before it fell over in exhaustion as well. Yellow smiled sympathetically and picked her Pokémon up in her arms. Oh, make paragraph. Shellder is a Pokémon that seldom moves, carries their homes with them, and their round, black bodies are easily mistaken for a life lived in literal darkness. This has made them the perfect metaphor for the Pokémon world's hikikomori community, and indeed among these shut-ins and the message boards they frequent, the name human Shellder has become a common term of reference. Furthermore, Shellder is a Pokémon that require little care. Provided they have an ample supply of food and a water tank to remain in, they are easier to care for and longer lived than most fish, and indeed than most grass Pokémon as well. They are, however, extremely unresponsive to human contact, and paradoxically will only truly bond with the most asocial of trainers. When a hikikomori, or indeed anyone who has truly bonded with their Shellder, dies in their home of suicide or drug overdose or wasting away or even old age, the Shellder will die as well. Some say it is the Shellder's death that kills the trainer and not the other way around, although this is not commonly believed, it is difficult to determine, as hermits and Shellder have similar lifespans. When this happens, the Shellder's spirit will float out of its body and turn into a Gastly. Once transformed, it will protect the peace of its trainer's soul by scaring away all intruders until it is captured or the room exorcised. Chapter number 263 Anxious Thoughts. Quite the show you put up there. Lucario praised. Pikachu. Pikachu agreed. You came through at the last moment. You should be proud. Austin said. Yellow blushed and looked away. A few minutes later, the friends were standing in the lobby where Hennessy presented Yellow her certificate and symbol to show she had achieved the rank of Viscountess. She even received a small case to keep the items in. Well done, madam. I hope for you to participate in future tournaments, Hennessy told her. You bet. Yellow said excitedly as she looked down at her certificate and symbol happily. She had a huge boost in confidence now that she had won her first official Battle Chateau tournament. Maybe she could achieve the rank of Duchess, after all. Ash, what is our next destination? Yellow curiously asked. Oh, we are going to meet Bill, Austin replied while he was reading an ad on the Pokénet about evolution stones. Are we going to travel that far back? No. Then how are we going to get there? Austin frowned and pointed at the sky. But aren't you afraid of heights? Fear is the tax that conscience pays to guilt. Lucario, Yellow, and Pikachu looked at Austin in confusion. What? Sinnoh region, heard. The professor smiled at his students. Pokémon have 3 evolutionary stages. That's something everyone knows. But is it true? Think about it. Plenty of Pokémon has only 2 stages, and some don't evolve at all. Now people will say what they meant was important is that the maximum is 3 stages. But that's not true either. There are Pokémon families with alternate 3rd stages, like Ralts or Eevee, which we just discovered a 9th stage for. So then people say, well, any individual Pokémon can still only experience a maximum of 3 forms throughout its life, but even that's been proven wrong by the discovery of Mega Evolution. He clicked to the next slide, and began. The number 3 comes up a lot in folklore even aside from mythical Pokémon. For example, he looked up at his slide, and stopped short, seeming just as surprised as the students. The slide showed paintings of 3 Pokémon Cynthia didn't recognize: a canine, a flatworm, and some kind of gigantic biped, all with the same green and black color scheme. Oh! He laughed after a second. Right, I put this first on, he coughed, and faced the class again. This is very exciting. Over in Kalos, they have another trinity, the 3 Pokémon you see here. But just recently researchers witnessed one of these Pokémon transforms into the other, proving that they are only different forms of the same Pokémon. Or, well, he waved a hand dismissively. The Lumiose Institute is insisting that just because the worm changed into the canine doesn't prove the biped is also the same Pokémon, but... He gave a knowing shrug. Preliminary research is already showing that the worm is capable of absorbing more cells, so people are pretty certain we'll see at least one more form. Perhaps this would have been realized earlier if we had focused on the fact of the matter, 3 Pokémon that showed signs of some relationship to each other but with no clear evidence pointing toward what that relationship was, instead of picking one option and assuming that was right until explicitly disproven by the weight of evidence. This time when he clicked ahead, the professor made sure to check the slide another display of the cave painting, with space for notes underneath, and gave a small, aha. Then, so, let's go back to this. First off, let's list what we can see for certain here. Each of the lights seems to be the same size. And we can tell one thing from that, which is that we aren't meant to be able to identify them by their image. Either they are interchangeable, or their position identifies them. This doesn't fit well with the Lake Trinity, where each is meant to represent a separate, specific virtue. In confirmed Trinity iconography, they are always individually identifiable, usually by color if nothing else. So, let's see what we can infer from their positions. We see the lights are arranged in a triangle, 1 above and 2 below, surrounding a central point. He looked out over the class. Is anyone here familiar with Draconid mythology? The students exchanged glances with each other. The professor waved his hand placatingly. It's very obscure. The Draconid is an extinct, ancient people who lived in Hone. The most complete record we have of their beliefs is from a missionary who lived 100 years ago. According to their notes, the Draconids believed the world was the domain of 2 demons, the land and the sea, but they were quelled by a savior from the sky. The bell rang, and everyone immediately scrabbled for their bags. For your homework tonight, the professor called over the din, think of other interpretations that could fit. For example, are there not 3 stones that evolve Eevee? Cynthia shouldered her bag and prepared to leave, but something nagged at her. Sigh, I wonder what Austin was doing? Last time he did tell me, he wanted to get Charmeleon checked out by Bill. Kanto, Bill's lighthouse. Austin knocked on the door to the lighthouse, stepped back, and waited. Knocked again. Nothing. When you mentioned this Bill character, did you forget to mention if he was still alive? Lucario asked, looking around. Maybe he's on vacation, Yellow noised, looking at the pile of newspapers on the front stoop. A Pidgey dropped down, deposited another newspaper, and flew off. No, he said he would be here, Austin said while making a dismissive noise and flipping over the welcome mat. What are you doing? Yellow asked. Oh, look at this, a key. And so conveniently placed. That's breaking, Yellow said while Austin rolled his eyes. Only if you break something. Now it was Yellow's turn to make the dismissive noise. Oh, okay. Yellow nosed. Then, louder, hello. Austin glanced around before drifting in. Lucario, what are you doing? Austin hissed. Being nosy. What does it look like? Lucario asked. Austin sighed before following him in, slipping slightly on the papers scattered everywhere. It was a well-lit, cluttered room with drawn curtains, boxes stacked on books, and a lot of electronic junk scattered about and lining the walls. The approximate center where the group was now standing was probably the cleanest area, with the dusting of papers. Austin's red eyes lit up as a worrisome thought filled his head. Something might have happened to Bill. Make paragraph. The name of the seaside village varies from telling to telling, as does that of the hero, and the identity of the dragon Pokémon involved. In Kanto, it is a Dragonite, in Hone, a Salamence, in Sinnoh, a Garchomp. The story is unknown in Johto, perhaps because there was no dragon to which it could be transposed. In all variants of the tale, the dragon is portrayed as a horrible tyrant. The people of the village are too frightened to lift a finger, and a young trainer with only a cloister who cannot beat even the village children in a Pokémon battle is the only one with the courage to fight back. He takes a ship to the dragon's lair or surfs across on the back of his Pokémon, and deep in the local cave, he confronts the dragon. In some variants, he holds a spear of ice given to him by his cloister, in others, he orders the cloister to use the attack icicle spear. In reality, he fought alongside his Pokémon, hurling spears into the dragon's eyes and slaying it in a sextuple shot. In the villages once terrorized, for there are many that claim to be the source of the legend, celebrations still take place on the day of the dragon's death, centered around a ceremonial slaying of the dragon by a cloister. In reality, it is a knocking out, although in the old days the dragon's wild descendants were captured and slain for the festival. Interestingly, with the increasing dominance of dragon types, a few trainers from these villages have brought the ceremony to the Pokémon League. Against dragons not instructed to throw the match, they have typically succeeded with cloister, but have been let down by their teammates. Chapter number 264 Catalytic Evolution. Needs merry mimes, Lucario said while looking at the mess. Definitely, Yellow agreed. Meanwhile Austin ignored the duo's commentary of this place resembling that awful cartoon those two like for some reason. Hello. Everyone looked down sharply at the new voice. A Clefairy was standing in front of them. Did that one just talk? Yellow asked, pointing. As in English? Is it like Meowth? Hey! The Clefairy said. It's me, Bill. Did Sir Bill get killed and is now being impersonated by a Pokémon? Lucario asked. No. Bill said, hopping up and down. Ash, it's seriously me honest. It's just I was experimenting with a new upgrade to the Poke Transfer system. That's the system that you use when you have more than 6 Pokémon and have to box one, and I got trapped and spliced with one of my Pokémon. Sounds like that Vincent Bryson movie, Austin observed. Wait, you got turned into a Pokémon? Yellow asked. Slow, isn't she? Bill asked Austin. You have no idea, Lucario said, nodding sagely. Yellow, meanwhile, was too busy pointing excitedly at Bill and practically yelling at Austin. See? See? My life goal of being a Pokémon doesn't sound so silly now, does it? You missed the part where this was an accident. Anyway, Bill interposed, waving frantically. If one of you would be a pal, wait until I get back in the transfer device and then hit F7. That should reverse it and allow me to get back to normal. Why didn't you do it yourself? There's not a delayed reaction to it. Then how did it happen the first time? Must you be difficult? It's my favorite hobby. I've got it, Yellow said, standing by the keyboard. It's this, right? Yes, perfect, Bill said, hopping into an open metal closet. I don't suppose you could close the door. Lucario slammed it in his face. That's mean, Yellow observed. I have an aversion to pink, Lucario explained. How about we leave him in there and get out of here? Hey, we've got to help, Austin argued. Ready? Everybody says to push the button. Push the button, Lucario repeated dully. Pikachu said something with more zeal. Yellow pushed the button. It was F7, right? Yellow asked. You'd better hope so at this point. There was a ding, like that of an oven, and then a knocking from the metal closet. Hello? Bill asked. Letting me out would be nice. Austin went over and opened the door when it was clear that Lucario wasn't going to do so. A man with unruly orange hair stepped out. Oh, thank goodness no more pink, Bill declared, patting himself down. I'm telling you, it was starting to get freaky. I spent all last night standing in the moonlight doing absolutely nothing. I didn't like it. He shivered. What happened to the Clefairy? Lucario asked suddenly. Hey! Lucario pointed. You got fused with a Clefairy, right? So when you got unfused, Shouldn't the Clefairy have been in this one? Bill looked concerned as he went over and opened the second metal closet. Hey! Wow, Austin noised. It is like the Bryson movie. I hadn't seen that movie, Bill muttered. So how do we check to make sure that what happened? I don't know, I could run some tests. Hey, try to use a move, Yellow suggested. Then we can see if it works or not. Bill considered this before wagging his fingers back and forth. They stood still for a few moments. And that was? Austin asked. It was supposed to be metronome, Bill said, frowning slightly. I guess I'm safe. Or it turned into splash, Yellow suggested. I suppose that's a possibility too. Inside the laboratory, Bill seemed to have transformed into a child on a sugar rush as he went back and forth from machine to machine. Austin meanwhile was beside Charmeleon as he got out of the MRI. That is loud, Austin commented with a smile as he brushed Charmeleon's scaly skin. Charmeleon. Charmeleon seemed to disagree with the MRI, beginning loudly. Well, aren't you, my tough little dragon? Austin said as he scratched Charmeleon's chin. Charmeleon turned away as he didn't want to show his affectionate side in front of other Pokémon. Ahem. What is it, Bill? I have some good news and bad news. Let's hear the good news first. Charmeleon's DNA seems to have stabilized. No complications should arise in its health in the foreseeable future, but I would recommend a new kind of diet to give Charmeleon enough nutrients for its new body. That's good to hear, Austin sighed in relief as he put his hand on his chest. Charmeleon wasn't suffering from the same genetic instability that Red's Eevee was going through in the manga. As for the bad news, Charmeleon's DNA seems to have deadlocked. Hey! Let me put it in simpler terms, Charmeleon can't evolve naturally. Ian. Charmeleon glared at Bill with so much hatred that had caused the scientist to back up, but Austin stopped Charmeleon by putting a hand on his head. Stop that, he is just trying to help. Charmeleon looked down in shame as it heard its trainer's voice. You said that Charmeleon can't evolve naturally. Yes, Charmeleon's DNA is currently extremely similar to that of Pokémon with catalytic evolution like Eevee, Arcanine, etc. So Charmeleon needs a stone to evolve. Not quite, Bill answered. Charmeleon needs something to induce his evolution, but I don't know what that thing is. So until we find the correct evolutionary stone or something like that, Charmeleon can't evolve. That is correct. Charmeleon meanwhile looked down onto the floor in disbelief. He can't evolve into a Charizard. As if Austin had sensed Charmeleon's emotions, Austin grabbed Charmeleon's shoulders. Buddy, look at me. As long as it takes, I promise you that we will keep looking for a way, okay? Maybe by the time you evolve into a mighty Charizard, I would have gotten over my fear of heights and we can fly in the sky as much as we want. How does that sound? Charmeleon smiled at his trainer's words before he jumped down. Charmeleon said as he pointed outside. Don't stay out too late. Well, quite the bond you have there. Bill commented as he continued, I have also checked up on your pink Magikarp. It isn't going to lose its coloration due to lack of pinkin berries and its diet can be substituted. Thanks for everything, Bill. It's no problem. Now mind telling me what is with your red eyes? Oh, make paragraph. There are many ways in which Gastly can be formed. Forming from the black cores of Shellder and Cloyster is the most common method, but most Pokémon can become a ghost when their spirit is bonded too closely with the world of the living, and there are those among students of the magical arts who achieve immortality by turning into Pokémon. These students are commonly called magicians, but this is a broad description. Of the 8 disciplines of magic, it is only the most skillful of illusionists who can turn into Gastly, even necromancers are unable. This is because Gastly itself are Pokémon that specializes in this magic, their true bodies are invisible without the usage of special equipment or Pokémon attacks. In the wild, they frequently play pranks with the usage of magical light, and many low-level stage magicians use Gastly, covertly, in their act. The best magic shows in the world are delivered at the top of the tower in Lavender Town. They are performed by the best illusionists who have died in the previous year alongside the greats of ages past. The audience is made up primarily of the dead, but a man or god by the name of Fuji is in attendance every year, and many devoted fans have snuck in over the years, some of them have even snuck out without being taken back to the afterlife with the rest of the audience. As for the show itself, many have been asked to describe it, but few have even spoken coherently when attempting, and their accounts only agree that it was the greatest thing they had ever experienced. Chapter number 265 Musharna, the drowsing Pokémon. I think this Porygon you heard is just a rumor, Bill said while showing Yellow how to help a Dratini shed its skin. You are a pathetic host, Lucario commented. Pleasure as always to hear you speak, Lucario. Couldn't say the same. While Lucario and Bill talked, Austin was deep in thought before he took a big gulp of his dark coffee. Pikachu meanwhile backed away from his trainer and the horrible thing he was drinking. How can anyone drink something so bitter? Hey, Pikachu. Pika. Pikachu looked at his trainer while tilting his head to the side. What's fat, slimy, and drinks a lot of coffee? Java the Hutt. Austin's joke went right over Pikachu's head, who just responded by showing his tongue. Whatever, Austin said as took another sip while looking at the spectacle in front of him. Dratini whined quietly at the intrusion, before settling quickly. He was uncomfortable, and his scales were bulging in places where the old skin had split. He wiggled around on the makeshift bed, before whining again. Piku jumped from Yellow's arms and landed beside her teammates, giving him a soothing growl. He moved to butt his head against her side gently and cooed again. Austin and Yellow couldn't stop the smile on their faces as Dratini tried to use Piku's fur to shed her skin. Calm down, little one. I'm going to help you get out of that skin, all right? Bill said. It would take the better part of an hour, he guessed, to get her completely out of her old skin. In the wild, Dratini rubbed up against rocks or other rough surfaces to start the process. It was fairly common for Dratini to have scars from their attempts to shed their skin. This little one had a few, but none that were noticeable. Bill started at her nose, rubbing the dry skin lightly with his fingers to get a feel for how bad it was. With a Wincey, he realized that he would need a few tools. Bill went back to his backpack and pulled out an empty bag, the moisturizer that he used earlier, and a small, semi-rough brush that he could use to help loosen the dead scales from the fresh ones. It was a long job, but he stayed gentle, muttering to the skittish dragon whenever she started to get irritated. Thankfully, he seemed to like Piku, and Choo-Choo liked him as well. By the time he reached his tail, the stitched-up places had been partially shed, leaving only scar tissue behind. Dratini cooed happily when Bill finally put the brush away and wiggled happily against his new friend. Ash, you have a Dragonair, right? Want me to show you how you can polish its scales? That would be appreciated. Next morning. Even though your visits are short, they are always a treat for me, Bill said with a smile as he shook Austin's hand. Likewise, and thanks for the grooming kit, Austin said. Well, I have a lot of spare kits laying around, Bill said as he patted Pikachu's head before the group said their goodbyes to Bill. Seeing their backs getting smaller and smaller, Bill couldn't help but sigh in loneliness. It was good to have company in this remote estate of his. Vermilion Harbor, midnight. North of Bill's lighthouse, exists an old harbor that had been destroyed in the war by Team Cypher of the Ors region. Ash, what are we doing so late at night? Yellow said as she rubbed her eyes. She looked ready to fall asleep. Don't worry, you just have to hold this light for me, Austin said as he sent out Dragonair and Magikarp into the water. Carp, car. Magikarp just came into a frenzy when he came into the cold water. Meanwhile, Dragonair maintained its regal beauty in the water even though everyone could see that she was shivering. Dragonair, Dragonair called out as she dived in and out of the water, splashing a little on Austin, who didn't mind. Meanwhile, Yellow and Pikachu were a few feet away from Austin. Do you have some kind of perverted need to go into cold water? Lucario asked as he saw Magikarp jump out of the water into the sand. No, I just need something in a cave under this harbor. Of course, it's in a cave, Lucario said as he glanced at Magikarp. Why are you up here? You're a fish. Carp. It's cold. Carp. Go into the water or I will throw you in. Carp. Magikarp got scared of Lucario and yeeted itself back into the cold waters of Vermilion Harbor. Austin placed the snorkel and jumped into the cold waters with Dragonair wrapping her tail around his waist. Meanwhile, Lucario was clenching for dear life onto Magikarp's tail, who was scared that the big bad guy would eat him. Magikarp and Dragonair stopped when they saw a gang of Tentacool and Tentacruel blocking their path by sleep. What now? Let me think. Well, think faster. I don't have some kind of magic device to help me breathe. Quit pressuring me. I got it, Austin said as he sent out Clefable and Munna. Clefable panicked at where he was and began to splash frantically, but Munna's psychic waves calmed down the fairy type enough for Austin to command it to manipulate gravity to move some Tentacle and Tentacruel out of their way. After carefully navigating through the sleeping gang, the group made it into the underground cave, which had a see-through crystal ceiling. Austin took out a camera before taking a few photographs of this amazing scene of the Vermilion Dome. In the center of the dome, lay a rock pillar with a crown made of yellowish crystal. Embedded into the king's rock were a firestone, a waterstone, a thunderstone, and a moonstone. Austin looked confused at the king's rock, as that was never mentioned in the Pokémon manga when Yellow came to this place during her search for Red. Austin just shrugged as if it didn't matter, since he was here for the evolutionary stones. Someone had offered 10,000 Poke dollars for each stone on the Pokénet, and Austin had jumped at that offer since he could buy top-of-the-line Pokémon food for everyone for 3 months with that kind of money. The reason he knew this wasn't a scam was that he had recognized the people who had run the AD from the anime. "Is this for me?" Munna innocently asked as she sat on Austin's head while pointing at the moonstone with her small stubby leg. "Yes." "Yay!" Munna said as she rushed to touch the moonstone embedded into the king's rock. A bright light engulfed the Vermilion Dome, disturbing some of the gang of the Tentacle and Tentacruel. The light died down, revealing a rounded, bipedal Pokémon that had a taper-like trunk. Its body was light purple, while its head was pale pink. It has oval, red eyes with 3 eyelashes and dark pink ovals on its forehead and cheeks. The tips of its 4 stubby limbs are dark pink. Dream mist seeped out of the mark on its forehead. Musharna. Austin couldn't help but smile as sensed the feelings of ecstasy from Musharna. "Look, I am so big!" Musharna's telepathically voice called out to everyone in the entire cave. "Sorry, couldn't control the new psychic power." "We need to work on that," Austin said while pointing Dexter at her. Musharna, the drowsing Pokémon. The dream mist coming from its forehead changes into many different colors depending on the dream that was eaten. This Musharna is female and the ability is Forewarn and Telepathy. Currently, this Musharna knows Calm Mind, Defense Curl, Dream Eater, Future Sight, Hypnosis, Imprison, Magic Coat, Moon Blast, Moonlight, Psybeam, Psychic, Psychic Terrain, Stored Power, Wonder Room, Yawn, Zen Headbutt, Protect, Rest, Light Screen, Shadow Ball, Ally Switch, Reflect and Safeguard. The age of this Musharna is 11 months. Make paragraph. It is said that an individual human or Pokémon, licked by a haunter, will spend a variable period of time shaking while displaying bizarre changes in behavior, and then inevitably pass away. This is untrue, for a haunter's tongue causes instant death. The misconception arises because it is only the mind which passes on. The body of the deceased remains animated, but it is the haunter that controls it, and it shakes because no haunter can perfectly control a body that is not its own. A haunter's body is not a weak one that is capable of little more than floating aimlessly. Yes, it can phase through walls, but it not only can turn invisible, but it must also strain to remain visible. Movement is difficult to control, light painful, and they remember all too well their previous lives and strain for an escape. Some possess those who they had developed grudges against in life, and strive to ruin their reputation before death. Others possess those they envied, hoping to live their lives even at the cost of killing those they looked up to. Many, however, possess random strangers, and most possess no one at all. Few haunters will stay in their new bodies for long. They will complete their grudges and turn to pity those they made suffer in the process of defaming their enemies, or they will find those who they envied did not live lives as great as they imagined. They will grow frustrated with the limited control they have over their victims' bodies and miss the freedom afforded by their status as a ghost. In time they will leave, their victims will die, and the haunter will either return to their form with a renewed appreciation or allow their spirit to pass on from the world. Chapter number 266. I like to offer you a deal. POV change. Stone Town. In a wealthy suburban town, the streets are lined with large, elegant villas. Each one is set back from the road and surrounded by sprawling lawns and gardens. The houses are all different, but they share a certain grandeur, with marble facades, gabled roofs, and intricate architectural details. The town itself is quiet and peaceful, with very little traffic on the roads. The air is clean and fresh, and the sun is shining down from a bright blue sky. The lawns are perfectly manicured, and the gardens are bursting with vibrant flowers. As you walk down the street, you can see people out and about in their yards, tending to their gardens or playing with their children. Some of them are chatting with their neighbors over the fence, while others are simply enjoying the solitude and beauty of their surroundings. In the distance, you can see the town square, with its charming shops and restaurants. People are walking their growlithes, pushing strollers, or simply enjoying the scenery. It's a picture-perfect scene of suburban life, and it's clear that this is a town where the wealthy come to live in luxury and comfort. This is Stone Town, a small suburban town famous for its stone sculptures and the numerous villas for the wealthy people that stay in this quiet town. Stone Town was famous for buying and selling items like old statues, evolutionary stones, and other precious gems. As Austin walked through the dense, quiet forest near Stone Town, he could feel the cool, damp air on his skin and the musty smell of the forest floor in his nose. He was blindfolded, so he couldn't see anything, but he could hear the rustling of leaves and the occasional chirping of flying-type Pokémon. He had a sleeping Yellow on his back, and he could feel her weight and the warmth of her body as she rested against him while wearing a blindfold as he tried to use aura to find his surroundings. Thud. "Don't move your aura like that," Lucario said as he patted his stick on his paws while Austin was trying hard not to scream at the aura Pokémon. "The aura is with me," Austin exclaimed in his heart as his aura tattoos glowed before sending out small ripples near him. Austin couldn't help but smile in disbelief as he felt everything around him. To think one day he would be training for something like his own powers. Would he be able to use these powers if he went back to Earth? Austin suddenly stopped, causing Yellow's eyes to flutter open while he took off his blindfold before crouching down and pointing. An Eevee with a collar and leashed up to a tree. In the middle of the forest. Yellow asked while half asleep. "Poor thing," Lucario opined. "It's been abandoned." The Eevee suddenly started vehemently barking. "What is it saying? He isn't abandoned. His trainer would be right back." Lucario answered back. "Is that right?" V. Yellow was surprised by Lucario's words as Austin stood a pocket knife and cut the leash. Eevee's tail wagged in happiness at Austin's actions as it got a little comfortable in a sleeping position. It was going to wait for his trainer. "Hey there buddy, when is your trainer going to come in?" "Eve." Austin turned to Yellow who was falling back asleep before he nudged her awake. "Hey, what?" Seeing Eevee and Austin looking at her, Yellow blushed and placed a hand on Eevee's forehead. "So what did you find?" Eevee's trainer tied it to this tree with food and water and said that he would come the day after tomorrow. V. "Okay, I am guessing this trainer is a little kid." "How did you know?" "Lucky guess." "So what are we going to do?" "Let's get Eevee back to its rightful owner. You come with us, and we'll go find your trainer, and if he doesn't think he can take care of you anymore, then you can come with us." "Pokémon aren't that vulnerable, are they?" Yellow asked. "It depends on how they were trained," Austin explained. "Contest Mons, for example, are trained to not have as vicious of attacks as Battle Mons. And there's the fact that tame Pokémon forget that there is such a thing as a food chain," Austin further added. "The Eevee might have done all right if it wasn't tied up, but it was a literal sitting Seduc. Anything from Firo to a Cans to remarkably hungry Rattata could have done him in." Stone Town, Eve's mansion. Austin and Yellow alongside Lucario walked through the Stone Town. "I wonder if Eevee can learn chatter," Yellow mused. "I doubt it," Austin said, looking around. "Do you see the address yet?" "Right there," Lucario said, pointing. "That big place that looks like a party's going on." "All right," Yellow cheered. "Maybe they knew we were coming, so they baked a cake." "I doubt it," Austin said again. "Come on then, let's see about Mikey." They went up and into the garden in front of the building, looked around. People were evolving their Pokémon. "This is an evolving party?" Austin asked. "Evolving party?" Yellow echoed. "If Pokémon evolve using a special item, their trainers generally throw a party for them, especially if it's a Pokémon very dear to them," Austin explained. "This one looks more like a group party." "Hey," Yellow noised, before tapping a guy on the shoulder. The guy turned to look at them, a box in his hand and an excited Poliwhirl next to him. "Oh, hey, some late arrivals," the guy declared. "Boxes are over on that big table, and there's a buffet over there, and a fountain and a battlefield over that way once your Pokémon's evolved." We're not here for that," Yellow tried to protest. "We're looking for a kid named Mikey," Austin said, adjusting his hold on the Eevee, which was starting to get antsy. "We think he lost his Eevee, and we're sure he's worried." "What?" "Hey!" the guy said, spotting Eevee. "Hey, that's great. Mikey and his brothers have been so worried about that little guy." "Straight that way," the guy added, pointing. In front of the Evo boxes they're the ones hosting the event. Great, thanks, Austin said, prompting the guy to nod and turn back to his Poliwhirl, which clapped happily. We should have a party for our Pokémon when they evolve, Yellow said as they walked through the crowd. You'll jump at any chance to eat cake, won't you? Austin asked. And your point? None, I suppose, Austin sighed before they were accosted by 3 boys about Brock's age and were forced to marvel at the hair they had. Eevee. All 3 chimed. You found him? The one with spiky yellow hair declared. We've been looking all over for him. The one with poofy red hair said. Yeah, we can't have a party without the guest of honor present. The one with wavy blue hair added. Guest of honor? Yellow echoed. Yeah, Mikey. Hey, Mikey. Look who's here. A little kid, maybe a few years younger than Ash, came forward. And looked, decidedly not happy at the sight of the Eevee in Austin's arms. These nice trainers found Eevee and brought him back. Hey, thanks, the redhead said. Austin smiled and said, it's no problem, we were just on our way to this party. I had seen an AD on the Pokénet that you guys wanted to purchase some evolutionary stones. Not gonna lie, I think this little guy was too excited when he saw those stones. Austin opened his backpack revealing a Thunderstone, a Waterstone, and a Firestone. Suddenly the Eevee in Austin's hands outstretched her hand out to Austin's backpack, causing the trio of brothers' eyes to widen before they looked at each other. They had made that AD as a part of a joke, but now seeing their precious little brother's Eevee reach out to these specific stones made the trio realize that maybe that joke had turned into an opportunity. Ah, yes, I do remember that AD. Name your price for these precious stones. The redhead said, causing Austin's smile to increase. Looks like his plan worked. 20,000 Poké each. Austin's words caused the brothers to almost trip up. That was 4 times the market price. Can't you bring down the price? It is my little brother's party after all. I want to do that, but I and my friend traveled from Viridian City. We had to pay a lot of money to get here on time. I am sorry, but I can't decrease the price. But thank God we arrived on time, or this buddy might have gotten hurt in the forest. Austin's lying words caused the trio of brothers to look at Austin with gratitude. In actuality, Austin had personally gone into that forest just to Eevee so he could charge the trio of Eevee brothers such a high price. He even had Haunter manipulate Mickey's Eevee to reach out for the evolutionary stones so he could get the trio to agree to his unreasonable price for the evolution stones. Was he pulling a scam on them? Yes. Was he ashamed of what he was doing? Yes, but he needed the money. No way in hell was he going to get his Pokémon mediocre food, for them it would be the top-of-line food. The Eevee trio brothers looked at each before turning towards the smiling Austin as they exclaimed. What did you say the price was? Oh, make paragraph. Gengar is not, in fact, the ghost of the dead Clefable. They are the opposites of living ones, and comparing them to Plusle and Minun would be a far better analogy. The Clefable is a species warped by lunar rocks, never reconciled to their exile, who sneak aboard spaceships after thousands of years and pray for a way back every night of the full moon. Gengar, on the other hand, loves the earth and evolves through events that free them of their grudges and unfinished business and allow them to move on at last. A link cable produces a similar effect. Unlike their gaseous predecessors, they have made peace with the fact of their death and have willed themselves back into solid forms so they can walk the planet once more. But although they have become solid again, Gengar is not yet living, and they are far too cognizant of this reality. They are vulnerable to the sun, but despise the moon, and spend their days wandering in the shadows, surreptitiously planting trees and using Shadow Ball on polluters. It is not the environment they love, but what it symbolizes. Some may do Articuno's bidding in icy mountains, but it is Moltres and Ho-Oh who represent their hopes and dreams. They too will pass on. They are so attached to the world that they cannot bear to part from it and possess an amazing strength of spirit. It is for this reason that the gods of the dead have allowed them to walk the earth until that eagerly awaited time comes and they can, at last, be reborn. Gengar does not seek nirvana, for there is nothing it offers them which is better than life itself. Chapter 270, Chapter number 267, Mysterious Girl. Now we can get on with the main event. The blonde declared. Austin noised. What's going on? Yellow asked. We threw this party so our little brother could evolve his Eevee. The redhead declared. Yeah, but he ran away the night before the party started, the blue-haired one said. And it was too late to cancel the party, the blonde added. But now you've brought Eevee back, so everything's back on track. So what'll it be, Mikey? The redhead said, turning on the kid. Which evolution will you pick? Go with Flareon, it's the best. Jolteon's the best. The blonde protested. No, Vaporeon is, the blue-haired one said, before apparently remembering there was an existing conversation going on and turning back to them. As thanks for bringing Eevee back, stick around for the party. If you've got any Pokémon that evolve via stones, now's a good time to do it. You've got a Pikachu, I see that'll be a Thunderstone. Vaporeon is the best choice, just so you know. No, Flareon is. The redhead argued. Jolteon's the best. The blonde protested. Mikey, right? Yellow asked. When the boy nodded, I say we run now while they're distracted. They did so, and Yellow didn't stop until he hit the buffet table. Austin meanwhile had a grin plastered across his face as he looked at his bank account through his Pokédex. Those brothers paid him well. With this, he had now secured a year's worth of top-of-line Pokémon food for each one of these Pokémon. So are they always like this? Austin asked Mickey, taking a plate and filling it up. Unfortunately, Mikey sighed, petting his Eevee. The plan was to keep Eevee away until after the party, so I wouldn't have to evolve him. Are you guys ready to evolve him, though? Austin asked, pausing with tongs filled with hot dogs. I mean, it's not like with a Charmander or a Doduo or a Magikarp you have to choose to evolve it. And then Eevee has, like, 7 known evolutions. We were just talking about this Jolteon and Vaporeon and Flareon, then they discovered Glaceon and Leafeon in Sinnoh and Espeon and Umbreon in Johto. How do you even pick one? And what if that's not all of them? There could be 10 more for all we know. So you see my problem, Mikey said. That's wrong. A voice called out to Austin, Yellow, and Mickey. Austin looked up to see a girl around the age of 16 or 17 that had silvery blue eyes and long silvery blue hair that reached past her waist with 2 long bangs that frame her face. She wore a black dress that hugs her curves and black flats. What do you mean? Yellow curiously asked the mysterious woman who Austin had a feeling he knew from somewhere. Little boy, you said there are 7 evolutions discovered. You might have to change the number to 8 since a new evolution of Eevee was discovered in Kalos known as Sylveon. The mysterious woman said. Oh, we didn't know. My name is Yellow, this is my friend Ash and Mickey. Yellow introduced everyone. You can call me, Karen. The girl said with a wink, causing Mickey to blush. Meanwhile Austin felt as if the ground beneath his feet was gone. He had recognized that name. Karen, one of the Johto Elite Four in the games who never showed up in the anime. In the games she was portrayed as someone who loved Pokémon, but in the Pokémon manga she was a cruel and sadistic trainer under the masked man. Now the real question was, which one of those iterations was she? If she was a subordinate of the masked man. Austin couldn't help but gulp at the thought, since the masked man was such a powerful trainer in the Pokémon manga that he could wield the legendary Pokémon, Ho-Oh, Lugia, and even Celebi. If he was just as powerful as his manga counterpart, then Austin didn't know if anyone can even face that monster. Seeing as Green was similar to her counterpart from the Pokémon manga, then the masked man would surely exist in this world. Austin gulped at the terrifying thought that his path may cross with the masked man's. Austin's aura pulsed, causing Lucario to appear beside him in a flash. Something wrong? Keep an eye on her. I hadn't given any thought to evolving V yet. Do you want to evolve? He asked V. The Eevee froze in the middle of eating a pastry with Pikachu, caught in a fierce internal debate that eventually broke the poor Monday down in tears. Hey! Hey! It's all right. I didn't ask for you to decide now. Yellow yelped, dropping everything to hug V. That's pretty much what happened with me and Eevee, Mikey said. We talked about it a lot, but I can't see evolving him. So what's wrong with being an Eevee trainer? Karen asked, petting V. V started to calm down, and Pikachu and Piku took the opportunity to snack on some of the food Yellow had dropped. I haven't the foggiest. It's not like Eevee's not pretty strong in his own right, Mikey said, putting Eevee down so he could help Pikachu clean up the mess. I mean, evolving's supposed to make a Pokémon stronger, right? But I like Eevee the way he is, and Eevee likes himself the way he is, so it'd be kind of pointless. So why don't you tell them that? Karen asked with a smile. How you try telling them anything? You saw how they are. Yeah, Yellow said, leaning back and accidentally putting her hand in a pastry. Pikachu, Pikachu, and Choo-Choo noised, pointing. Sorry, Yellow said, moving her hand and shaking it a little to get the filling off. Oh hey, wait a minute, Pikachu evolves into Raishu using a Thunderstone. You didn't want to evolve, did you? Pikachu didn't even hesitate, an automatic shake of his head, but he looked at Austin to tell Yellow that he can't evolve due to the light orb, but his silent trainer was deep in his thoughts. Pikachu looked a little worried as he saw the sweat-drenched Austin, who was anxiously trying to make some kind of plan. He had to make sure Karen doesn't develop any interest in them and subsequently tell the masked man about them. It's not that easy with those three, Mikey said. I've tried telling them for over a month now, and they were too busy organizing the party to listen to me. Well, parties are fun, so. And then before that, from the day I got Eevee, it was a huge argument over which Ian was the best. You'd think there wasn't anything else to talk about. Yellow noised, going back to petting V. Hey, what if we showed them? Hey. You said Eevee is strong in his own right. I've got 4 badges right now. What if we challenged your brothers using Eevee and Choo-Choo and Pikachu, to round it out, since it's 3-on-3, Yellow said, looking at Austin, who seemingly froze at the idea. Mikey considered this. That might work, but what if we lose? They might make me evolve Eevee then. Yellow shrugged. Then we do our best to make sure we don't lose, how's that? Mikey nodded, looking like he was trying to keep from throwing up. You want to join? Austin carefully asked Karen, who smiled. I would love to. Then I should sit this one out. Austin said, causing everyone to shrug as Karen took out Pokeball while Yellow nodded back, scooped Choo-Choo up, stood, and helped Mikey up. Come on, Karen said, brushing her long hair to the side and making her way through the crowd, grabbing Mikey's wrist to make sure he followed. There you are. The redhead greeted when they spotted the two. So what did you decide? Flareon. Get real, I told you Vaporeon's the best. The blue-headed brother said. Jolteon's the best. The blonde insisted. Boys, we were wondering if you'd agree to a battle, Karen said. The 3 of them stopped dead, staring at them. Do what? The redhead asked finally. You, us, battle, Yellow said, indicating Karen, herself, and Mikey. Mikey has Eevee, I have a Piku that evolves using a Thunderstone with Karen to round out the trio. We have the evolved Ians battle the unevolved ones, and whoever wins is in the right. Meaning? The blue-haired one asked. Meaning if you win, Mikey makes his decision on which Ian to go with, Karen said. Although I think you are being limited, focusing on just the 3. Mikey noised, looking like the bottom had dropped out of his stomach. But if we win, then you have to accept that Mikey and Eevee don't want to evolve, and stop pestering them about it. I don't know, the blue-haired one said, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. But if this settles it all right, you're on, the blonde said, leaning forward. And Mikey, when my Jolteon wins, you'll know for certain that Jolteon is the way to go. Get real, Vaporeon's the best. Flareon's the best. The redhead exclaimed. What about Glacian or Sylveon? Yellow asked, earning disparaging looks from the 3 brothers. What? All right, we accept, the blue-haired one said, glancing at the other 2 before nodding. Hey everyone! He called, addressing the party at large. We're having a Pokémon battle. I can't do this, Mikey muttered, hugging his Eevee and looking ill. You can't back out now, Yellow insisted. Besides, you said Eevee is strong, Choo-Choo strong too. We'll win this easy. Just believe in your Pokémon and you will win. Mikey didn't look convinced, but followed Yellow and Karen over to the battlefield just the same. We'll do this as a triple battle, just like in Unova. The blonde called, dramatically clenching his fist. A triple battle? What's that? Yellow asked. She had heard of a 3-on-3 battle, which is what she thought this was going to be, but a triple battle is when you battle 3 Pokémon against 3 Pokémon at once, the blue-haired one said. It's pretty challenging, so if you can't hack it. No, we'll be fine, Yellow said, twisting her straw hat back, which didn't change much. Go on. Choo-choo. Piku ran out onto the battlefield, the latter with cheeks sparking. After a long moment of hesitation, Mikey set his Eevee down and nudged it, prompting it to run out and stand on Pikachu's other side. Show them the beauty of the dark, Karen said as she threw a Pokeball into the sky, releasing an avian Pokémon with black feathers. Its crooked, yellow beak and the 3 feathery tufts on its head resemble a witch's nose and hat respectively. It has semicircular, red eyes with white sclerae and pupils and a spiky collar of feathers around its neck. The shaggy feathers on its tail resemble the end of a broom, and there is a thin, red band at the base of the tail. Its yellow feet have 4 toes, 3 facing forward and 1 backward. Murkrow. All right. Go, Jolteon! The blonde yelled, gesturing dramatically. Flareon. The redhead yelled. Vaporeon. The blue-haired one rounded out, imitating his brother's dramatic posing. Onto the battlefield. They all yelled at once, and all at once, the 3 Eons named leaped out and landed on the battlefield, poised to charge just as soon as the order was given. Why didn't you participate in the battle? Lucario asked the quiet Austin. That woman, what kind of aura do you feel from her? Austin asked in a deathly serious voice that sent shivers down Lucario for a second as he saw the crimson glow in Austin's eyes. Make paragraph. Onyx is a Pokémon of great antiquity, which dominated the land in the Paleozoic Age. The grass types which existed at the time could beat Onyx in combat, but they had no reason to do so. They were largely stationary Pokémon ancestral to creatures like Oddish and Bellsprout, which preferred to leech from equally stationary rocks. It was in the Triassic, with the rise of saurian Pokémon such as Sceptile, Meganium, and Venusaur, that the Onyx went into decline. These fierce Pokémon were capable of leeching their nutrients and wrapping them with vines to prevent escape, moved at far greater speeds than them, and often exploited Onyx's weakness to so-called special attacks such as Solar Beam. Hunting by these Pokémon drove the Onyx from most of the Earth's surface, and they turned to seek shelter in the caves where they are found today. Indeed, given that the Pokémon are made of rock, it is occasionally even the same Onyx. Onyx does not live forever, but their bodies do. It is the mind which decays and shuts down until another mind forms. Their great age allows them to be considered living fossils in more ways than one. A recent development, however, threatens to change the balance of the ecosystem. Some Onyx has fashioned discarded steel from human settlements into coats of armor that fuses into their very cores. These steel Onyx or Steelix are considered to be a new evolution of Onyx, and, despite their numerous weaknesses, are immune to the electric Pokémon, which are most often the natural predators of steel. Colonies of this Pokémon have thus far only appeared in Sinnoh and Johto caves, but there is ample reason to believe that, as their population grows, they will crawl across the outside ground once again. Chapter 271, Chapter number 268. Who was that? All right. Go, Jolteon! The blonde yelled, gesturing dramatically. Flareon. The redhead yelled. Vaporeon. The blue-haired one rounded out, imitating his brother's dramatic posing. Onto the battlefield. They all yelled at once, and all at once, the 3 Eons named leaped out and landed on the battlefield, poised to charge just as soon as the order was given. I'm guessing they've been working on that, Yellow said to Mikey, not taking her eyes off of the field. You have no idea, Mikey muttered, rubbing his face. Double team. Yellow ordered out. Quick attack, Karen called out to her Murkrow. Eevee, use helping hand. Piku's cheeks started sparking as she multiplied on the battlefield. Eevee yipped an affirmative, starting to glow with the energy of helping hand, meanwhile shot at high speeds toward the 3 evolutions. Helping hand. All 3 brothers yelled. Thunder shock. The blonde added. Ember. The redhead rejoined. Water gun. The blue-haired brother called. Dodge. Yellow yelled. Choo-choo, take the thunder shock. Piku nodded and jumped into the air to meet the electrical attack. Use Thunderbolt on Vaporeon when you hit the ground. Yellow ordered. Acid armor, Vaporeon. The blue-haired brother yelled. Jolteon, pin missile. The blonde called. Dodge. Mikey, start helping. Yellow shouted, fists clenched, attention riveted on the battle. Meanwhile Murkrow countered Pin's missile work, swift. Ack, right. Eevee, helping hand, and then growl. It was a start, and it would wear them down. At least Choo-choo was hitting the ground running, aiming right for Vaporeon, which melted down into a puddle on the ground, causing Piku to miss completely. What was that? Yellow asked, floored. Vaporeon can change its molecular structure to match that of water, the blue-haired brother said. He can dodge any attack you throw at him. Really? Choo-choo, use Thunder Shock on that puddle. Dodge it, Vaporeon. The Vaporeon resolidified and leaped out of the way in one smooth motion. Quick attack. Murkrow slammed into Vaporeon's side, knocking the wind out of it. Flame charge on that Piku. The redhead yelled. Dodge it Choo-Choo! Mikey, come on! Quick attack! Mikey yelled. Pin missile! The blonde yelled. Quick attack! Yellow hollered. Flame charge again! The redhead ordered. The three-way battle was quickly turning into a disorganized mess. None of them had any chemistry with fighting in tandem, and they were having to hold up Eevee. The Pokémon were all in a tangle, and they were getting harder to see in the dust being churned up by the battle. They needed a way to slow the opposing team down. Think, Yellow, think. Aha! Eevee, cover your eyes! Yellow called. Choo-Choo, sand attack, frenzy style. Trainer and Pokémon alike paused to give him a nonplussed stare. Mikey looked kind of offended that Yellow had given an order to his Pokémon. Meanwhile Karen snapped her fingers, causing Murkrow to fly up. And then Piku squeaked her understanding before ramping to her hind legs and screaming at the top of her lungs. Pie-eighth! Eevee figured it out first, buried his face underneath his paws, and a moment later, once Piku's actions became clear. Pitch had a pit dug out in the center of the battlefield by the time Yellow called her off, and pretty much everyone within 10 feet of the battlefield was covered in a fine layer of dust by the time it settled. It also left 3 very confused, very blinded Ians in its wake. Okay. Yellow said, grinning. Mikey, you're in this too. Choo-Choo, thunder shock on Vaporeon. Tackle Jolteon, Eevee! Mikey yelled. The brothers scrambled to fight back their Ians shot attacks blindly. An ember grazed Eevee. Mickey gasped at the sight of the fire. Staying Eevee was burned. Piku took down Vaporeon but got muddy water to the face. Jolteon was using discharge. Boom! Flareon crashed onto the floor as Murkrow's shadow ball slammed into it. Wait until the discharge hits, then use refresh. Mikey called. Choo-Choo, up! Choo-Choo jumped over the major part of the electrical attack. The airborne bolts hit but didn't do nearly as much damage as they would have on the ground. Eevee braced himself, took the attack. And then glowed, the burns and the electricity dancing along his fur disappearing. Refresh gets rid of any status conditions, Mikey told Yellow, grinning now. Eevee. Use return. Quite the battle strategy, Karen said with a smile as Murkrow's dark pulse tore through the battlefield with Flareon as its target. Meanwhile, Yellow had a puzzling moment of wondering just why Mikey was forfeiting the match. Was even more so when Eevee started glowing, charging across the field, and aiming for Jolteon. Dodge it! The blonde gasped. Too late. Eevee connected with Jolteon, hitting it so hard that the brothers across the way had to dodge out of its way as it went flying. Jolteon skidded along the ground and didn't get back up. The dust of Dark Pulse cleared, revealing a knocked-out Flareon, causing Karen to smirk. Sometimes playing with these low-level trainers is a joy in itself. Burrowing electric impact. Yellow called out as Piku blasted up from the ground using Dig in conjunction with Quick Attack. Piku's cheeks glowed as she released a bolt of electricity attacking Vaporeon front and center. Piku landed, bounced a little, lifted her head when she realized she'd won. And the 3 Ians are unable to battle, so Karen, Yellow, and Mikey win. Someone called. All right. Yellow cheered, jumping up and down before running over to Mikey, who looked stunned. Did you hear that? We won. We did, Mikey said blankly. That's, wow. Mikey's Eevee cheered, running circles around Pikachu and Murkrow before launching itself at Mikey, practically glowing. No, it was glowing. It hit Mikey's chest. And then he was holding an entirely different Pokémon. Espy. Whoa! Mikey and pretty much everyone in the vicinity gasped. What? Eevee, evolved, wow, Yellow noised, checking her Pokédex, frowning when it came up empty since her Pokédex didn't have the national dex, unlike Austin's Pokédex. That's an Espeon, Karen said. It's a psychic type. They evolve. Snap her fingers. They evolve when they reach max happiness during the day. I bet you that's why it evolved. But, Mikey noised, confused. I thought you didn't want to evolve. Yes, the Espeon chirped, before snuggling up against Mikey's neck and purring. Karen was looking back and forth between Mikey's brothers. Hey, I think I know. You 3 were only shilling Jolteon, Flareon, and Vaporeon, right? The 3 brothers looked at each other, and their Pokémon, started rubbing their heads sheepishly. You can't fault us for being passionate about our Pokémon, the redhead said. No, Karen said. But I bet that's why Mikey's Eevee didn't want to evolve. It didn't want to evolve that way. Max happiness, hey. Mikey murmured, rubbing Espeon's back and then hugging it. Me too. Yellow smiled, and looked at Choo Choo. What do you guys think? Maybe someday. Piku squeaked with excitement. Kai. A scream came from the party, causing everyone to turn to it. And suddenly everyone froze as they saw a giant figure wearing a black cloak, a mask of ice with 2 black eyes and a black mouth, and long white locks of hair. Imagine this. Everyone looked confused at this mysterious figure who suddenly teleported out, appearing and disappearing without a word. Yellow was the most confused as she could sense that man was Austin in disguise, but why? Stone Town, Forest. Austin in his masked man disguise sighed as Ditto removed himself from Austin's body with help from Clefable. Did you find out what you were hoping for? Lucario curiously asked while Ditto was nervous that he had disappointed his trainer. Ditto's mouth whimpered as he hugged his trainer's leg, who just smiled and said, "That would depend. What did that woman feel when she saw me?" Confusion and intrigue. No shock, Austin asked with Lucario shaking his head. Looks like Karen isn't one of Masked Man's children in this world. That's one more headache that is avoided. With Team Rocket and Mewtwo here, I don't want one of the powerful trainers to be added to that list for now. Make paragraph. Drowzee is a Pokémon alternately feared and beloved for their ability to eat dreams, dreams which Drowzee view in their entirety as part of their strange digestive process. Less well known is their ability to regurgitate these dreams for their trainers, which they do not in the form of vomit, but as television-like clouds on which the events of the dream are displayed. These trainers are typically employed in the creative fields. Some are authors, others playwrights, or screenwriters, or poets, or game designers. Most of them are talented in their own right and use dreams only occasionally during periods of writer's block. A dream is a poor story, so the wisdom goes, but a skilled writer can draw elements of one into their work. There is, however, a literary movement composed entirely of Drowzee trainers and dreams, which strives to weave coherent and fascinating storylines while maintaining the fantastic logic of dreams. Some of these dreams are stolen, but most come from the trainer, the Drowzee used only to aid in dream recollection. While the dream itself is forgotten through this process, dreams often are anyway. A video is more easily remembered than even the best recalled dream. Within this movement is a circle of horror writers who first use other Pokémon to give them nightmares. These trainers are ostracized by polite society as Pokémon abusers, for the act of eating and regurgitating nightmares gives Drowzee a nasty sickness. Their stories are nonetheless extremely popular. Some moral guardians say this is because the readers are as twisted and awful as the writers, but most critics and fans disagree and retort that the stories are just that good. Chapter 272, Chapter number 269, Aura Potion. Yellow's POV. It was a cold, chilly night as I stand by the side of the road. The wind was whipping through my hair and I could see my breath in the air as I exhale. My fingers were numb and I rubbed my hands together, trying to generate some warmth with Dratini cuddling around my neck, but the cold still seems to seep through, making me shiver. I look around, trying to get my bearings, but all I could see were a few streetlights and the empty road stretching out in front of me. I can hear the sound of cars passing in the distance, but none of them seem to be stopping. I couldn't help but think of the stunt that Ash had pulled, but what was the point? He must have his reasons. Brrr. Hearing the sound of a motorbike, Yellow turned to see Karen riding on a Harley-Davidson bike with a mini-bike where an Umbreon sat. "Hello there, Yellow," Karen said as she stopped in front of the star-eyed Yellow. Hello. Want a ride?" "Ahem, thank you, but I am waiting for my friend." "Oh, so romantic, waiting for your boyfriend." Karen's words caused Yellow to blush. Ash isn't my boyfriend." "When did I say it was Ash?" Karen asked, causing Yellow's blush to increase. "Haha, don't worry, I am just teasing." Even with Karen's words, Yellow's blush didn't go away. "So do you want me to wait with you until your boyfriend arrives?" "No, he will be here. I don't want to trouble you." Before Karen could even say something, Umbreon jumped up and shot a dark pulse to the side. Pika! From that side, a bolt of lightning tore through the dark pulse, sending Umbreon onto the ground beside Karen. "Umbreon, stop this," Karen ordered, causing Umbreon to stop as she glared as Austin and Pikachu came up to them. Austin was carrying a grocery bag in his hands with Yellow's favorite Uden filling the majority of the bag. "Quite the powerful Umbreon you have there," Austin commented. "I could say the same." Karen returned as Umbreon jumped back into her mini-bike. "Well, I don't have the time, or I would have loved to chat." "Thank you." Yellow squeaked out, causing Karen to smile before she pointed at Austin. "You, Ash, right?" Yes. Are you participating in the Pokémon League? Yes. Good, then I'll love to battle you in the league, Karen said as she twisted the handle causing the Harley to speed off. Austin noised as he looked at Yellow. Let's go home, I even bought Uden. Yay, did you buy a cake? Yes, I bought your favorite cake. He, did you buy yourself something? Other than a pack of cigarettes? Yes. I didn't. Then you can share with me. Yellow said as she adorably tapped her fingers. Don't want to. Please. Okay, fine. Yay. Karen Ainsworth drove her Harley-Davidson down the road, the wind rushing past her as she felt the power of the bike beneath her. The open road stretched out in front of her and she felt a sense of freedom and exhilaration. Suddenly, Karen felt her phone vibrate in her pocket. She glanced down at the screen and saw that she had a call. Karen considered ignoring it, but decided to pull over to the side of the road to check it. She brought the bike to a stop and dismounted, pulling out her phone. Hello there Grandma Agatha, Karen answered in a cheerful voice causing Umbreon to look up at her trainer and sigh. Of course, it was that old hag. Stop with that fake voice, Karen. Oh, I don't know what you mean. That respectful tone of yours, I don't need fake respect from my granddaughter. Okay, what do you want old hag? Karen answered in a cold voice. Looks like you're still mad. Oh, and whose fault was it that I almost died learning that stupid tactic? Karen, you were the one who approached me to teach you about Mega Evolution and I warned you about the dangers. Ha, do you tell that to fall asleep at night that because of the dangers with Mega Evolution, you put your only granddaughter in danger? Karen shouted into her phone causing Agatha to remain silent for a few minutes before speaking. Well, my sleeping pills do help me a lot at night. You know I wish I was young so that I could fist myself to sleep but now only powder shoots out of there. Grandma! Karen shouted in embarrassment causing Agatha to chuckle. Well, looks like I got your attention. What do you want? I got the league to agree to have you battle the current Elite Four to see if you are worthy of the ranks. Karen! Agatha frowned as she heard silence in response from her granddaughter. I don't need it, you old hag. I can win the league this year and challenge the Elite Four all on my own. Karen! Before Agatha could even speak any more words, Karen turned her phone off and climbed back on her bike, and revved the engine. She can't help but frown as Karen thought. I don't need your help, old hag. I prove to you that I can walk the path of being a dark-type specialist with or without your help. Karen's necklace swayed in the wind revealing a smooth stone in the middle. It glinted in the light, catching the eye of anyone with its shimmering surface. Karen Ainsworth took off down the road, the thrill of the ride pushing all other thoughts out of her head. -0. Morning, 5 a.m. Stone Town Forest. Austin in a blue tracksuit stared at Lucario standing in front of him. So, do I like to drink this? Austin asked as he stared at the strange brew that Lucario had handed over. Well, you were complaining that your training isn't showing any results. You can barely move your aura, you can barely do anything. When did I say that? You didn't, but I could tell from your frustration during yesterday's mediation session. Lucario, I feel like a battle would be the most shonen thing to bring out the fruits of my practice. What? Never mind, just spar with me. Lucario smiled and widened his stance before looking at Austin. I plan to, but first drink the brew then come at me, boy. Austin nodded his head. He gulped down the elixir without any hesitation. The taste itself was normal. It tasted good, like honey and lemon were added to it. At that moment Austin thought it was a relief that it tasted good. Thump. His heart beat faster than normal. At first, Austin thought that he was hallucinating, but he wasn't. Sweat dripped down his back. The most interesting fact was that, he could feel each and every drop of sweat on his back. What is this? Thump. It wasn't just the sweat. The touch of the air on his fingers and the feeling of the ground he was stepping on. When he blinked it felt like 30 seconds. This is effects of the elixir. Only Lucario's voice felt the same amongst everything that felt different. It slows down what you feel. It's easy if you think that it extends your time. It was horrible. Austin could feel each strand of hair moving on his body. He could even feel the veins in his ears twitching. If he didn't know, he would think that he drank poison and not an elixir. Can't you feel it? What are you talking about? The thing moving in your heart. Thump. There was something there. No, something was flowing. And it wasn't blood. It was softer and friendlier than blood. But it flowed throughout his entire body from his tattoos. It was slowly spreading to my heart. That's aura. Lucario spoke. The reason you have so much trouble with aura is that you keep treating aura as a tool. You are not manipulating your aura properly. Even that aura sense you did was just you releasing your aura while your body instinctively tried to do the opposite, and as a result, a haphazard aura sense was born. This wouldn't be accepted. Use this opportunity to change your mindset. Aura isn't a tool, rather it is an extension of your body. Lucario said as he raised one leg towards Austin's head, blocking Austin's vision of what the aura Pokemon would do next. Lucario's leg disappeared and Austin felt something crash into his jaw as he was thrown towards the ground. Austin tried to get up, but his body didn't follow his command. I'm slower. Just one step. He felt that he could avoid the attack with just one step, but that one step was too slow. Austin felt frustrated. I can avoid it. I even knew where it would attack. You can avoid it. Don't give up. Lucario spoke in a low voice. Focus your aura on your feet. Amplify your senses. Like the subconscious flow in your seals is being sent to your right foot, quick. For the first time in Austin's life, he felt what true aura was. How would he focus this on his leg? It was easier said than done. But, there was no other way. He had to do something. Move. The flow in his seals. It felt cool and clean, like a flowing stream. He focused on that cool feeling and tried to send it down to his right leg. Squirm. The aura in his seals twitched with his efforts, but it's harder than you think, huh? It was hard. It's because there's no pathway for aura in your body yet. The path hasn't been made. Your body can be compared to a mountain road. You need to clear it like a highway to be able to use it. Hup. Austin continued to focus on his right leg while Lucario babbled on. If his heart was a blocked sink, his right leg was like a cup under it. Drip. Drip. Aura slowly dripped off of the broken sink. Whoosh. Lucario's leg sailed towards Austin's head, who in a split second dodged it. What? Relief only lasted for a moment. Happen. Lucario spun on the heels of his feet as he went into a right hook. Austin focused the aura on his upper body. What happens now? I make a mountain path into a highway. It was hard. The sink in his seals was still clogged up. He didn't see water flowing from it any time too. He was thirsty, but it was only releasing one drop at a time. Austin clenched his teeth. Obstinance grew inside him. Hup. Austin bent back. Whoosh. Lucario swung into the air. It was close. He barely avoided the second attack after the first one. And Austin didn't plan on letting it get in another attack. What? Austin gathered strength in his knees. Look at you. He focused the aura on his dorsal body, especially his spine. Not just focus on it, but bend it. 5 seconds. 3 seconds. 1 second. It was messy, but when aura gathered at his spinal cord, Austin's eyes flashed crimson as he perfectly performed a mirror move of Lucario's right hook. His form, his technique, and his timing were perfect. Lucario's eyes widened as he deflected the attack to the side where Austin's fist met a tree's trunk, but this time Austin's small fist blasted through the tree's trunk, causing Austin's eyes to widen and his jaw to drop. Did I just do that? Make paragraph. It is commonly believed that Hypno is a Pokémon capable of total mind control, one so complete that the human-possessed might as well be a robot or a video game character. This belief is so wide-ranging that murderers have successfully used Hypno possession as a defense, and espionage agencies have funded vast amounts of research into the targeted use of Hypno to win wars or assassinate opposition leaders. It is also almost entirely wrong. The reality of Hypno possession is far more modest. People possessed by Hypno move with a sluggish gait and a hunched-over posture, and their eyes, not the irises, but the entire eyes, glow a light blue similar to that of many psychic Pokémon when engaging in the use of their powers. It is only the weak-minded who can be possessed, and even they cannot be driven to do things contrary to their nature, such as harming the people they love. While Hypno is occasionally used for kidnapping in this manner and other nefarious deeds, for while Hypno can be resisted, there are always those who will blame Hypno possession for things they would have done at the first excuse anyway. The most common usage is far more benign. It is not uncommon for a person to spend one moment staring into a Hypno's pendant, then awaken hours later to find that they had cleaned a park or repaired a house, or cooked meals for the homeless. Perhaps Hypno, for all their reputation, is good-hearted after all. Comment. 6. Comment. Vote. Chapter 273, Chapter number 270 Grandpa Canyon. Read advanced chapters, plus 70, of all my works or want to support me. https://www.p.a.t.r.e.on.com/adamo_amit. Join us on Discord. https://discord.gg/h3kdw7ma. POV change. As the sun beat down on the dry and dusty canyon, a group of scientists and workers bustle about, their voices rising and falling in a lively cacophony. Towering cliffs of red and orange sandstone rise on either side of the canyon, the ancient rock seeming to pulse with the heat of the midday sun. Amidst the chaos, a large pit stands at the center of the scene, its depths shrouded in shadows. Around it, a group of people is gathered, their faces obscured by masks and hats as they labor away in the unforgiving heat. Some use small brushes and trowels to delicately sift through the dirt, while others wield pickaxes and shovels, their muscles straining as they work to loosen the ground and expose any fossils that may be buried beneath the surface. Tents have been set up in the area, providing a measure of shelter from the sun's relentless rays. Inside, the air is cool and dim, the only sound the murmur of voices as the scientists pore over maps and charts, their eyes bright with excitement. Crack! The sounds of excavation echoed throughout the canyon. The place of turmoil was the Great Grandpa Canyon located in the northern part of Kanto. Groups of trainers, archaeologists, and other people had made Grandpa Canyon their home as they dug up the fossils of the beasts that once roamed this great land millions of years ago. Grandpa Canyon is theorized to have been a great water lake where Pokémon from the surroundings migrated during the Mesozoic era. Austin and Yellow reached the canyon entrance the next morning, following the markers and the crowd to the dig site while on Rehorn's back. Austin held him tight on the saddle he had gotten for Rehorn, with Yellow practically hugging Austin the whole way there. Austin had ordered the rock type to charge ahead, hoping that doing so would save some time. He had learned it the hard way that contrary to other terrestrial Pokémon like Arcanine, Rehorn could only run straight, irrespective of any and all boulders and obstacles that might be unfortunate enough to be on its way, but the thrill was addicting, so he had made it his goal to learn to at least ride Rehorn. So this is Grandpa Canyon! Yellow exclaimed, looking the reddish-orange cliffs over. Why are we even here if we have a few fossils with us? Yellow curiously asked Austin, who was sweating profusely, trying to slow down Rehorn, who didn't seem to stop. Come on, stop! Austin's words finally penetrated through Rehorn's thick skull, but the sudden stop of the Pokémon caused Austin and Yellow to be thrown out from Rehorn's back. Rehorn stared at Austin's hat with a few sparks in his eyes before chewing on it. Austin meanwhile cleaned himself before outstretching his head out to Rehorn, who just stared at it while chewing the hat. Yellow sweat dropped as she saw Austin and Rehorn having a stare down with one another before Rehorn spat out the hat. It didn't take very long, as an annoyed Austin and a giggling Yellow followed the chatter, and the tire tracks into something approaching a valley in the canyon, filled with people and tents everywhere. Wow, Yellow noised. That's a lot of people for so early in the morning. Most of them have probably been here for a while, Austin said as he glanced at the article on the Pokénet. They didn't open the place up to the public until recently due to an attack on this place from Team Rocket a few months ago, where Team Rocket captured a lot of Rehorns, which resulted in the archaeologists getting access to an area of Grandpa Canyon that was the territory of the Rehorn tribe, where they found a fully intact fossil, and they wanted to get it out of the way before looking for more. That is great and all, but why are we here? Yellow asked. I have a Pokémon I want to catch in this place. Oh, what is it? It's going to be a surprise, Austin said as he stopped himself when he saw a group of people ahead. Austin focused on channeling his aura into his ears. He had been working on this exercise for weeks, trying to harness the energy within him to amplify his senses. He could feel the aura swirling inside of him, a glowing, pulsing ball of energy that seemed to vibrate with life. Taking a deep breath, he focused all of his attention on his ears, visualizing the aura flowing out of him and into the delicate structures inside. At first, there was nothing but silence. Austin could feel the aura swirling around his ears, but there was no change in his perception. He gritted his teeth and pushed harder, pouring more and more of his energy into the effort. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by a cacophony. Austin's ears were flooded with noise, the voices of everyone in the canyon seemingly echoing inside his head. He heard conversations from all around him, the footsteps of passing people, and even the rustling of the wind in the trees. It was too much. Austin tried his best not to cry out in pain as he clamped his hands over his ears, trying to block out the overwhelming noise. Yellow sensed Austin's pain and placed a hand on Austin's forehead, her eyes narrowed in concentration. Austin could feel a tingling sensation as Yellow's powers flowed into him, soothing the pain and dizziness that had racked his body. A dumbass is always a dumbass. A voice called to the duo as they glanced to the side and saw Lucario standing with a stern expression. Austin felt embarrassed as he knew he had made a mistake by overestimating his ability, and he vowed to be more careful in the future. What should I do? Visualize or focus on whoever it is you want to hear, Lucario answered, causing Austin to nod while Yellow looked concerned as she didn't want Austin to go through that pain again. Seeing the look of distress on Yellow's face, Austin exclaimed, "Don't worry, I will be careful this time." "But don't worry, Yellow, we now have the master with us if anything goes wrong." Yellow reluctantly nodded as Austin closed his eyes to focus on his aura. "Hey, did you see those footprints which have been roped off, and even an Aerodactyl skeleton? They've already started the plaster wrap so they can load it up and take it to the Pewter City Museum. Wasn't that just a rumor?" "Yeah, at first I thought so too, but after seeing it firsthand, I couldn't believe my eyes." "Hey, wasn't that Professor Oak's grandson?" "Yeah, little shit found a fossilized Pokémon manure, but he's searching for something a little bigger like a madman." Austin's sweat dropped before shaking his head, getting up and turning back. "Shouldn't we go down there?" Yellow asked, but Austin shook his head and pointed at a forest near the canyon. "Nope, we aren't going to find the Pokémon I want in the canyon." "There was it. Under the canyon." "What?" Yellow asked incredulously. "Cerulean City, Cerulean River. Abandoned power plant." Pokémon of the electric type stared on in awe and horror as they saw the sky covered in the abyss of dark clouds as streaks of lightning shot through the abyss, illuminating the meeting of two gods. The members of Team Rocket were shaking in their boots, scared out of their minds as they stared at the back of the entity known as Mewtwo, who bellowed out, "I am a god, I will live forever. You, on the other hand, will fall." Mewtwo's words were directed at one of the children of the avian god of thunder, Zapdos. Zapdos's body glowed with ethereal lightning as the demigod's call was like a switch that caused the dark clouds of the abyss to direct their lightning like a hammer of God judging upon the mortals who claim divinity. The giant bolt of lightning caused Mewtwo to smile and exclaim, "I am the great traitor to this world. There must be no other. If I, Mewtwo, want the birds to drop dead from the trees, then the birds will drop dead from the trees. I am God. The earth I pass will see me and tremble." With a wave of his hand, Mewtwo stopped the entire bolt of lightning falling upon him before turning towards Zapdos, who felt an extreme sense of danger engulf him. "If I, Mewtwo, want the gods to fall, then so shall they." Mewtwo's eyes glowed with an azure glue before he threw the bolt of lightning towards Zapdos as if he was mocking him that he would bring the demigod of thunder, with the bolt of lightning itself. Make paragraph. Unlike their evolved form of Kingler, a Krabby's joints are quite feeble. It is quite common for their large pincers to break off in battle. The pincers grow back quickly, although the Krabby is somewhat limited in their movement ability in the meantime, and many trainers even harvest them for sale. It is not a Krabby's natural strength but the design of the pincer which gives them their effectiveness, and they work just as well when operated by a human or attached to machinery. Some are used to crush rocks into powders or break open Pokémon like Clamperl or Guadud, while others are used to crush the necks of condemned criminals. Although this is often considered overkill, they are even used in the preparation of food as nutcrackers, can openers, or simply in a role similar to silverware. One of the first ritual prohibitions seen in the Pokémon world was that of using these pincers on Krabby or Kingler meat, which was thought to anger the gods and disrespect the dead. It has made its way into many religions, but not all. The followers of Groudon and the Regi trio make a habit of eating Krabby whole as a show of contempt towards the sea. Chapter 274, Chapter number 271, Prehistoric Pokémon Part 1. POV change. "Aura is with me," Austin called out while his hands were on the ground. Thud. "Ow!" Austin said as he held his head with his hands while he glared at Lucario, who was looking at the stick in his hands as if it was the greatest thing ever. "Why did you hit me?" "Because you were doing it wrong." "Then show me how to do it right," Austin said as Chansey waddled to his side before healing the bump on his head. "Nope, I believe you can do it yourself," Lucario said. Pikachu's side is turned to see Haunter painting a sleeping yellow. Thud. "God damn it, Lucario, let me focus." Thud. "Language, you are a child." Then this is child abuse. Thud. What was that for? I don't know. The hell you don't know? Want me to hit you again? No. Then start spreading out your aura. Why do I feel dirty after hearing that? Austin chose to keep his mouth closed as he saw Lucario raise his stick in the air. Closing his eyes, Austin again placed his hands as he began to channel his aura through his skin. Aura is with me, he thought as his vision was replaced with a rather ghostly landscape, focusing his aura on the ground, moving through the gravel and underground cave, eventually coming to overlook a massive underground system filled with prehistoric Pokémon of every shape, from Omenid to Kabutops. Austin opened his eyes. He had found it. He had found the hidden prehistoric Pokémon beneath the Grandpa Canyon. Could have been better. Lucario said as he glanced at Austin. Feeling the encouragement, Lucario. I just have a lot of expectations from you. I just thought you wanted to put me down, Austin said with a frown causing Lucario to sigh. Maybe he was a little harsh on his student. You know that was a lot better than when I was trying it out during my days of training. Thanks, Austin said with a smile since Lucario's words meant a lot to him. Guys, do I have something on my face? Yellow called, causing Austin and Lucario to turn only to find Yellow's face covered in clown makeup. Swoosh. 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 Piles of dirt could be seen being hurtled through the air as multiple Pokémon could be seen digging into the ground beside a cave with Rhyhorn taking the lead. This is pointless, Lucario said as he took a bite of his chocolate while he sat on Austin's back, who was doing one-hand push-up. Agrrr, Austin noised as he pushed his body to the limit. Stop growling, Lucario said as he glanced at Pikachu and Choo-Choo were playing around in the sandcastle Yellow was building. Crack. RHY. Clee. Caesar. The sudden shouts of everyone alerted the group above as they quickly gazed into the pothole that was dug while Rhyhorn, Clefable, and Caesar had fallen into it. That looks deep, Lucario said as Austin lit up his lighter before throwing it down. Caesar, cry out if you are fine or if you see the light. Austin frowned when he couldn't properly hear any kind of cry. Cry louder or I'll expose you. Caesar. Good, then pick up that lighter and check if everyone is fine down there. Caesar. Getting the confirmation, Austin sent out Bulbasaur to help them get down with Vine Whip. Pikachu use Flash. Pika. The entire cave lit up as Pikachu conducted electricity through his cheek pouches, providing a source of illumination as the electric mouse sat on Austin's head. What was that? Yellow curiously asked as she looked around the cave when she felt something staring at her. A Pokémon, Austin answered back. Meanwhile Caesar placed his claw on Austin's shoulders. Don't worry, I am not telling anyone of your crippling Lopunny porn addiction, Austin whispered back, but his joke didn't seem to land as Caesar was still glaring at him. Fine, I won't expose you and Firo's late-night chess sessions. Caesar suddenly stopped and glanced down where he saw Ditto looking at the duo innocently before Ditto realized that maybe he had stumbled upon something he shouldn't have. Ash! Yellow screamed out, catching Austin's attention while he was negotiating with Caesar to not kill the shy Ditto. Austin turned to see the eyes much closer on the wall, which was enough to send everyone scurrying back to the center of the lit portion of the cave and letting several Pokémon out. I've decided I officially hate spelunking, Lucario announced. Same, Yellow agreed. Caesar snorted, and shot another torrent of green and red energy from the signal beam, illuminating irregular shapes belonging to the glowing eyes. And then the first of them stepped into the sun. Whatever it was tall, big enough that it was taller than an adult, with long curving scythes for arms and a broad blunt head, all spiky and coated in armor and squinting in the sunday. And there was more than just one, with small round shapes scurrying along beneath them as they fanned out curved helixes with blue tentacles waving about. And then one small helix with blue tentacles parked itself in front of them, posing and squeaking and glaring at them. Austin exchanged glances with Yellow. All of them looked at Lucario. Oh boy, Lucario groaned, cleared his throat and started. It says praise Lord Helix. Really? Austin asked in disbelief. No wait, that means this is an Omenid. Yellow exclaimed, pulling her Pokédex out. And the rest of them, Omastar, Kabuto, and Kabutops are all extinct fossil mons. They don't look extinct, Lucario muttered. Maybe it's like with that one fish in Hone, Austin mused for shits and giggles. What was it, Relicanth? The lead Omenid squeaked indignantly. Excuse me, I'm not done talking, Lucario translated. Now who dares to enter our domain? Why don't you dance for them? Austin asked Lucario. Oh, Please, I have my dignity. Pretty sure that died a long time ago. Guys, stop arguing, Yellow said as the prehistoric Pokémon came closer. Buletin ka but, a Kabutops said. Lucario looked at the Omenet ranting and raving. This one says that we have trespassed into their domain, now we must face their wrath. Is that necessary? Yellow asked the Omenet. I mean, it was kind of an accident, I think. He says yes, Lucario said. Buletin ka too, one Kabutops muttered. They looked at Lucario to see him smirking. Shut up, Steve, Lucario translated. Their leader is named Steve? Austin asked. Hey, I'm just translating. Watch as the Omenet got into a heated argument with a Kabutops and several Kabuto, and Omastar trying to get them to stop. Okay, now most of that I don't feel comfortable translating with Yellow present. That bad, Austin said. Pretty much, yeah. Well, at least they're arguing and not eating us, Yellow offered. That's part of what the argument's about. Oh, Omastar. The Omastar stormed finally. And what was that one? Austin asked. They say to eat you, Austin, first, Lucario said while pointing at Austin. Everyone started and squashed closer toward Austin, who sighed and said. I have a better suggestion. Austin's words caused the Omenet and Kabutops to stop. Caesar. Austin's words ended with a red blur going past before Steve the Omastar saw all his knocked out in the wake of the red blur. Steve gulped as he looked up to see a smiling Caesar. Mercy. Pray to your god that he better have mercy on you. You won't get any from me. Caesar answered back to Steve, who only saw red before his vision blacked out. Make paragraph. The small land area of Route 19 to the north of the sea has not always been a dependency of Fuchsia City. In the Sengoku era, it was home to a tall castle constructed and dominated by a colony of Kingler. Architecturally, it was a series of interlocking step pyramids surrounding the valley below, poor use of space, to be sure, but the Kinglers' weak reach and lack of climbing equipment offered them no better options. The strange territory's roots are shrouded in mystery. Some ascribe it to an eccentric trainer of the era who did live in the area and have a strong bond with his Kingler, but evidence of him ever owning a castle is scant, and he is believed to have had Pokémon like Machoke in his lineup. Others claim it was established as a forward base by Articuno and the Pokémon of Seafoam Island, and there is evidence of temporary alliances and trade between Seafoam and the castle. This scenario, however, does not account for the dominance of Kingler in the territory. Kingler was but one of many Pokémon in the area, and seldom an influential one. The castle stood for centuries, eliminated only when the ninja of Fuchsia City had gained cannon and gunpowder from their trade networks and ceased their constant clan warfare. When they finally triumphed, they slaughtered with the special fury of humans exerting dominion over nature. They made a desert of the castle's central village. Even today, there are neither humans nor Pokémon which call that beach home. Chapter 275, Chapter number 272, Prehistoric Pokémon Part 2. Austin saw Caesar drop Steve the Omenet down. Everyone started and squashed closer at a roar echoing through the chamber. Buletin ta, a Kabutops noised, cawing. Now you've done it, Lucario translated. Wait, where are you all going? Yellow asked, looking around at all the fossil Pokémon scurrying away. I don't know, but maybe we should be doing it too, Lucario said. And then something swooped over, blotting out the sun to land on a rocky outcropping over them. Yellow stared, pretty sure she knew this one from the Pewter Museum and not wanting to risk pulling her Pokédex out for Aerodactyl. Big, figured to be a flying type thanks to the wings, and jaws built for biting and crushing, their thought to be preferred prey of Omenet. It'd probably work well on people too, unfortunately. Maybe we don't move, Yellow hissed. Its vision's based on movement, right? That's a T-Rex, Austin hissed back. What's a T-Rex? Yellow answered back. Maybe we get out of here before we're dinner, Yellow insisted, shuffling sideways, one eye on the Aerodactyl, busy staring at the opening in the cave ceiling as though trying to fathom it. Suddenly the Aerodactyl looked down. Everyone froze. Okay, quick, backup plan, Lucario ordered. Maybe tell it we taste awful. Yellow suggested. We taste awful. Lucario sardonically said. The Aerodactyl snarled, lips curling up to reveal sharp teeth. Mr. Grumpy, Yellow said. What was that one? Lucario sighed. Fresh meat. The Aerodactyl roared and launched itself at them, dive-bombing them and causing them to scatter, diving for cover. Bullet pull it. Caesar pivoted, launching itself at the Aerodactyl. which dodged but fortunately missed its swoop. Hey, what was that? Above the ground, Gary Oak asked one of the archaeologists as they felt a few earthquakes. I don't know, maybe another team is using a Pokémon with earthquake to excavate a concretion deposit. Interesting. Gary Oak said with a smirk as he sent out Arcanine. Maybe he could find some kind of fossil from the excavation. Oi kid, remember to be careful since the cops are investigating another potential terrorist threat from Helix cultists. I thought it was the Dome guys who were doing the terroristic threatening, Gary said. Does it make a difference? I guess not. Inside the cave, Caesar used Aerial Ace to dodge Aerodactyl's stone edge. The purple thing glanced at Austin and dove toward them with a shriek. Food. Oh hell no, Lucario snarled as his fist landed on Aerodactyl's face. Get your village, idiot. Lucario dodged a whipping tail, and stayed even as Aerodactyl dove up and down with Lucario guessed that it would probably try for a feint. You're going to have to do better than that, Lucario snarled right before Power Up punched Aerodactyl in the throat. It wheezed, flailing backward. Wait! Austin yelped, causing Lucario to stop. Let me talk to it. Did something hit your head? I don't think so, Austin answered back as he took a few steps toward Aerodactyl before looking her in the eye. Lucario, translate for me. That's what I have been doing for the last hour, you damn lunatic. Tell me, do you feel satisfied in this small world where you rule? Lucario translated Austin's words to the prehistoric Pokémon word for word. Seeing the prehistoric Pokémon silent, Austin continued as he wanted to give Aerodactyl the choice to join him even though he could as easily throw a Pokeball and be done with it. Join me and I can show you a world you haven't seen before. A world where you can fly your wings in the sky. Austin said as he outstretched his hand out, causing Aerodactyl to stare at him before moving a little closer. It's working. Lucario thought in surprise, but it looks like Lucario was wrong as Aerodactyl suddenly lunged forward towards Austin while screaming out. Aerodactyl. Translation, food. Boom. Aerodactyl was launched back into the wall, causing a dust cloud to form which revealed a knocked-out Aerodactyl a few seconds late. Aerodactyl's knocked-out form caused a sigh of relief to wash over everyone while shock was registered on the faces of the prehistoric Pokémon who was getting back up. Thank Mew, the ghost was there to save the idiot, Lucario said before a tap on his shoulders caused the Aura Pokémon to turn to the side to see Haunter standing beside him. Haunter outstretched her tongue before licking Lucario's shocked face. Caesar, Pikachu, and everyone stared at Haunter before turning towards Austin as they saw Austin's shirt torn from his right shoulder, showing off his tattoos that glowed crimson red. Yellow blushed and covered her eyes, but everyone could see her peeking out as she stared intently at Austin's revealing upper body. Austin had knocked out Aerodactyl with a punch. Everyone's jaw dropped as the realization of what happened set in. I really should stop treating every Pokémon I want to capture like I am in the anime, Austin whispered to himself right before throwing a Pokeball at the downed Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl vanished in a flash of light into the Pokeball. Pika! Pikachu exclaimed, tackling Austin as soon as he realized how close his human was to die. Pika 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 pi pi, pika pika pika. While not understanding much, Austin just smiled and rubbed the electric mouse's head. Don't worry buddy, I am fine. Look! Yellow yelled. Everyone did so as Lucario groaned when he saw Steve the Omenet come out, his fossil entourage behind him. Greetings, loyal subjects! He yelled, tentacles everywhere. Bow before your new ruler, me. Shut up, Steve, one of the Kabutops muttered, walking by him. Yeah, I'm just coming out here because it beats being in that cave, a different one said. You guys suck, Steve muttered. Bow before me, new loyal subjects. Pikachu's side twitched his ears and looked up when Yellow tapped Austin on the arm. What do we do about this? Yellow asked. Don't worry, we are going to seal this cave back up. Austin's words caused the prehistoric Pokémon to look at him. Run! Steve the Omenet screamed out as he tried to run towards the cave ceiling that had a hole in it. And we lost Steve, an Omastar sighed. You promise? A different Omastar asked. Meanwhile, the others just stared at Austin obediently since they saw him knocking out the previous leader of the cave, and as per the rules Austin was the new leader. So what do we do about him? Lucario asked, causing Austin to turn towards Yellow, who smiled and threw her Pokeball forward that had been attached to a fishing pole. Yellow closed her eyes as the Pokeball turned in such a unique way that everyone could only look on in awe. Steve the Omenet smiled as he was just about to reach the ceiling cave before he felt something touch his shell. For the sake of all that we hold dear, and of the world's order and peace, it is unthinkable that we should refuse to meet the challenge. It is for this high purpose that I now call my people across the caves, who will make our cause their own. I ask them to stand calm and firm, and united in this time of trial." Steve screamed out as he was engulfed by light before vanishing into the Pokeball. "What did he say?" Yellow asked as she looked at the shaking Pokeball. Austin shrugged before turning towards Lucario, who was enjoying himself as the prehistoric Pokémon bowed in reverence to him. "Ding! Ash! We have an amber fossil with us." "Yes, and you're going to ask why I caught an Aerodactyl if we could have revived it." "Yet. Well, the thing is that reviving a fossil Pokémon is two cons. First, it is expensive, and second is that when a fossil is revived, the Pokémon is naturally weaker than a normal Aerodactyl because of the missing genetic data that has been lost due to fossilization." Yellow nodded as if Austin's words hadn't just entered one ear and exited the other. Seeing Yellow's blank expression, Austin replied, "It's expensive." "Oh. Yet. So, what are we going to do with the fossils we have?" "Don't worry, I have a plan for them." Austin suddenly felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see a Clefable standing there, holding a small, white egg in its arms. The egg was about the size of a basketball and had a smooth, glossy surface. It was adorned with small, pale pink spots, which seemed to shimmer and glow in the sunlight. Austin could see faint outlines of something moving inside the egg as if whatever was inside was trying to break free. As he reached out to take the egg from the Clefable, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread engulf him. This was Tigipai's egg. "Is that a Pokémon egg?" Yellow screamed in excitement as she quickly snatched the egg from Austin's hands. She gazed upon it with a star in her eyes before her excitement dropped as she carefully placed the egg down. "What's wrong?" "Pika." Yellow didn't even look at Lucario and Pikachu as whispered back, "The baby is scared." Pikachu and Lucario nodded in understanding as they turned toward Austin, who was running back and forth. Hundreds of thoughts filled his head as he tried to think of a solution to this dilemma. They were essentially going to war against the most powerful organization in the sovereign states of Kanto and Johto, and now they had a baby to take care of. Oh, make paragraph. There is indeed a family in Johto which can fashion them out of apricorns, and Sylph Corporation has made outstanding strides in making wholly synthetic ones, and across the sea, a different, mushroom-like Pokémon is used. Nonetheless, throughout human history, the overwhelming majority of Pokeballs have been made out of the corpses of Volturb. It is a surprisingly simple conversion, requiring only the removal of most of the Pokémon's internal organs, a few alterations in wiring, and the placement of a button to open and close the Pokémon's body. Artisans in the old days could go through 100 a day, modern assembly lines do so even faster. Initially, the secret of the Pokeball, along with the Pokémon themselves, was a closely guarded secret by the rulers of Lavender Town, which governed the power plant. Although the reasons why Volturb corpses treated in this manner can shrink, capture, and domesticate Pokémon are still not understood by science, the secret itself could not be guarded for long. Trainers who had previously resorted to elaborate Pokémon taming techniques soon paid enormous sums for Volturb, which were shipped around the world despite their tendency to explode. Lavender Town, for its part, gained in wealth what it had lost in power. Today, synthetic Pokeballs, often blue or gold instead of red, depending on their effectiveness, appear to be the future of Pokémon training and are increasingly used by trainers who compete in the Pokémon League. The low cost of a Volturb-made one, however, continues to make it the overwhelming favorite among the average trainer. Large farms of Volturb can still be found in secluded areas, where they are killed once they reach maturity so they can be turned into Pokeballs.
Thanks for listening.